Chapter 667. Reigning Forces' probing attack only lasted a few seconds before they were crushed by the system's pincer attack. Thinking about the 800 guild players behind them, Unsworn Sword did not give the order to retreat. They would not suffer any losses even if they died, so they might as well fight to the last man. Reigning Forces no longer had the chance to take a step forward. The sudden appearance of the assassins was more than enough to deal with. In addition to the ranged attacks from the top of the wall, the 2 rows of infantry at the base of the wall did not even have to move before Reigning Forces' army was completely annihilated. When Unsworn Sword came out of the resurrection point, he saw that Feng Xing was already there waiting for him. After a short pause, he suddenly complained, "You saw that we were ambushed by assassins. Why didn't you bring anyone to help us?" Reigning Forces did not go all out in this battle. He only sent out the archers and priests, while the other melee players stayed behind to watch the battle. Feng Xing was also stunned for a moment. "You didn't say anything." "I can't see clearly because I'm closely involved. You should have seen the situation better from the outside. You should have made a decision at a time like this. Even if you're not confident, you should have reminded me," Unsworn Sword said. Feng Xing did not say anything. He felt that Unsworn Sword's words made sense. They might have been too focused on the enemy to think too much when they were charging in. He was supervising the battle from the back and should have sent reinforcements at that time. The enemy's assassins were not many. If Reigning Forces melee players could have helped at that time, they wouldn't have been defeated in this wave of attacks. Unsworn Sword sighed, feeling that it was a great pity. At that moment, Countercurrent's voice rang in his ears. "Guild leader Unsworn, you've worked hard." Countercurrent estimated that Unsworn Sword was about to die and hurried over to the resurrection point, just in time to greet him. As for whether he was here to console him or to watch him make a fool of himself, only he knew. Unsworn Sword was vexed, but he would not show his dejection in front of his competitors. When he heard Countercurrent's voice, he immediately straightened his chest and adjusted his equipment. He turned his head with a solemn expression and said, "Guild leader Countercurrent, the system is not easy to deal with this time." Yes, we all saw it. Following Countercurrent were a few other presidents of the convention, and all of them had solemn expressions on their faces. Unhindered's trip to the Four Seas wasn't for nothing. The catapults can still attack like this, and they even have assassins hiding in ambush. This is something we've never seen in our previous battles, Unchung Mutsu, the guild leader of the Cloud Shepherds, said. Unsworn Sword sent a heartfelt gaze of gratitude to their guild leader, who had spoken up for them. He wasn't the kind of person who only knew how to go against the flow. He was now seriously analyzing the pitiful information that he had obtained by sacrificing himself. If the catapult's attacks are like the ones that appeared just now, I don't think there's much to worry about. With the support of the priests, they should be able to hold on for a while. After they come into contact with the enemy's soldiers, the catapult's attacks will definitely stop. Otherwise, no matter what kind of stones they use, they will hurt their own people. Yes. Everyone nodded. Although we have 170,000 people, it's too much of a waste to charge like a swarm of bees. Perhaps the system predicted the number of players in each main city, so it set up a strategy that would be targeted at them. I suggest that we arrange our players according to the size of the area, and try to widen the formation as much as possible. Our brothers who come out can be substitutes at the back. When the brothers who charge first fall, the substitutes will follow, and the brothers who fall will rush back from the resurrection point as soon as possible. I don't believe that we can't break through this cycle. As Unsworn Sword spoke, he actually managed to make some sense out of it. When he looked back, he was quite impressed with himself. Originally, he just wanted to casually analyze the situation to prove that although he died quickly, his death wasn't in vain. However, the more he spoke, the more ideas he had. After explaining the rotation system of the main force and substitutes, Unsworn Sword felt that it was really amazing. Black Index Finger, who had been quiet all this while, as if he wasn't used to being a guild leader, suddenly sighed and said, "Everyone, the 170,000 we have is actually just a theoretical number. As for the actual situation, I've asked people to look around. We have more than 800 guilds, and more than half of them are beginner guilds. Some of them don't even have 50 people. Many of them are around level 30, and some are even wearing white equipment. Of these 170,000 people, not all of them are as elite as the members of Unhindered and Singing to Wine. It's hard to say whether or not a portion of them can be counted as combat power in this battle. I'm sure everyone has a rough idea of the strength of the system guards. They are quite strong. If we were to fight them one-on-one, I'm afraid that no one here would dare to say that they would definitely win, right? Yes. Everyone nodded. Unsworn Sword didn't say anything. He had really fought one-on-one just now, and if it wasn't for the support of a few clerics, he would have really lost. However, I think that Brother Unsworn's suggestion is very good. I think we should seriously investigate the members. If they aren't strong enough, we might as well not let them participate in the battle. Otherwise, it might cause problems in our coordination, Black Index Finger said. That's true, but I don't know if these people are willing, Unsworn Sword said. As soon as he said this, the other guild leaders all sighed. They were all guild leaders, so they understood the difficulty. Their levels were low, and they were weak, but they were still players. To put it bluntly, they were on the same level as the 5 roaches. If they were willing to follow the arrangement and not cause trouble, it was considered reasonable. However, if they refused to comply and wanted to play in this city war, there was really no reason to stop them. Black Index Finger laughed and said, "There are a total of 4 gates in the main city. We'll focus on 1 gate, and the other 3 gates are empty. Those who are not willing to cooperate with us can go play in the other gates. Even now, there are still many guilds who are not willing to cooperate with us, and are trying to find their own way in the other gates, right?" Both Sword of Unsworn and Against the Current felt their hearts skip a beat. Black Index Finger's meaning was clear. On the surface, it was to reduce the number of members and get rid of all the slackers. However, it seemed like it was trying to concentrate as many points as possible in the hands of these people. Anyone with a bit of knowledge could see that in order to take down this city, everyone had to work together. A guild with only 1,000 or so people would not be able to do much on their own. Moreover, other than these 5 guilds, there were no guilds with thousands of people in Cloud City. Everyone, don't worry. You can leave this task to us. We Blackhand came from a mercenary group, so we know quite a lot of people, Black Index Finger said. What do you think? Against the Current looked at the others. Only then did Unsworn Sword realize why Countercurrent had gathered so many people to the resurrection point to pick him up. Actually, it was because they did not want too many people to talk. Right now, the ones who had come were all the guild leaders of the conference, so they avoided the guild leaders of the smaller guilds. They just needed to decide on the plan, and then those people would follow along. I have no objections. Unchung Mutsu was the first to express his opinion. Following that, quite a few other guild leaders agreed with Black Index Finger. In the end, Unsworn Sword and Against the Current also nodded in agreement. With that, the matter was settled. Black Index Finger immediately left to gather manpower and conduct a detailed selection of the people before him. Guild Leader Unsworn. At this time, Unchung Mutsu came to Unsworn Sword's side and pulled him. Unsworn Sword saw that he had something to say, so he did not reply. Instead, he sent a message to him. What is it? Don't you think that Black Index Finger came prepared? Unchung Mutsu said. What do you mean? There are thousands of guilds in Cloud City, and we have 820 here. Out of the 820 guild leaders, how many names have you called? Unchung Mutsu asked. There are probably only a few dozen of them. Unsworn Sword reacted after answering the question. Previously, when Against the Current discussed with him, he said that he wanted to contact all the guilds in Cloud City, and Unsworn Sword did his best. However, the guild leaders that he knew were at least level 4 or 5 guilds. How could he know those newly formed beginner guilds? But now that more than half of the 800 guilds were small guilds, how did he contact them? Who knew so many small guild leaders? Against the Current, or was it Black Index Finger? No matter who it was, to be able to gather so many small guilds in an instant, this person must have prepared beforehand. At the very least, they must have gone to the guild building to prepare for class and memorize the information of all the guilds and guild leaders in Cloud City. To be willing to put in so much effort, they must be planning something big in this city war. For this black index finger to dare to take on this task, he must know at least a few hundred guild leaders, right? Even if he came from a mercenary group, his connections shouldn't reach this level, right? Actually, his so-called connections are similar to ours, just a bit more famous, and more people know us. But on the other hand, we don't really know much, Matsu said. Yes, what you said makes sense. This guy, it seems like he wants to do something big, Unsworn Sword said. We need to be more careful, Matsu said. Yes, I wonder if that against the current kid knows about it, Unsworn Sword said. Hard to say, maybe they've been working together for a long time. Otherwise, who would call so many small guilds in the first place? You only know a few dozen guilds, and so do I. Especially these small guilds, I can't call them. Matsu said. Yes, I really didn't notice this at first. Unsworn Sword nodded his head. He realized that after winning the competition and completing the chain quest, reigning the 4 seas seemed to be a bit too arrogant. They didn't put anyone else in their eyes, and they thought that the championship was already in their bag. When he thought about how against the current black index finger, or all of them had made such detailed preparations for this city war, Unsworn Sword felt very uneasy. He really wondered if he had fallen into a trap. When he thought of a trap, Unsworn Sword subconsciously wanted to look for Han Family Young Master. But this time, Han Family Young Master didn't appear with against the current. He didn't appear, but the message still arrived. Unsworn Sword thought. It was the same to think positively or negatively of this matter. As long as he was willing, he could create a bunch of illusions to comfort himself or scare himself. The attack at the North Gate temporarily came to a halt, and against the current shut his mouth about the wave of probing that his guild should have. Unsworn Sword wanted to see what this guy was planning, so he didn't say anything and pretended to disappear. At the same time, he kept in touch with Time's reflection to see if there were any discoveries. At the same time, he was also thinking about the details of what happened here. The player army didn't move, and Gu Fei and Sword Demon were so lonely that they stood under the city gate and yawned. They didn't make it in time to catch White and Black, and the second wave of attack was all from against the 4 seas. They were waiting for the third wave, but the players still didn't move. They're probably thinking about how to deal with it. I don't think this city is going to be easy, Sword Demon said. The wave of stone attacks just now was really dense. There was no way to dodge. It's just too fake. A stone as big as a head, falling from such a high wall and hitting your head. Won't you die? Gu Fei said. You can't say that. Everyone in the game isn't an ordinary person. They're all strong warriors. Anyone who gets smashed to death is an ordinary person, Sword Demon said. That's true. If it was me, I wouldn't die either. Gu Fei didn't think he was an ordinary person. The players did not move for a long time. The two of them were thinking if they should find a way to sneak into the crowd of players. In any case, the players would definitely not be able to guess that they were actually spies from the system. While they were discussing, they suddenly heard a creaking sound coming from the entrance beside them. The two of them turned around and looked at the entrance. They saw a person pushing a 2-wheeled wooden cart laboriously towards the entrance. The closer they got, the more the two of them could see each other's faces, and they were both shocked. Little Ray, Gu Fei and Sword Demon said in unison. In front of the two of them was the first celebrity in Cloud City to become famous throughout the parallel world, the owner of Little Ray's bar, Comrade Little Ray. And Little Ray also recognized the two great generals of Child Elite Group who had been occupying his bar all year round. Qianli? Sword Ghost? There was a look of surprise on Xiaolei's face as he called out their names. Sword Demon reacted quickly to things related to the game and immediately asked, You also have a camp? After hearing this, Little Ray was startled. How did you know? But then a look of realization appeared on his face. You two also have a camp, so this city war was left in the city? Yes. Which camp are you in? Sword Demon quickly asked. The Commercial Trade Alliance. What about the two of you? Little Ray asked. I'm in the Assassin Alliance. He doesn't know, Sword Demon said. Doesn't know? Little Ray was puzzled. Gu Fei was embarrassed. I joined in muddle-headedly. No one told me this was a camp in advance. I didn't know who to ask afterwards. Little Ray, how did you join this camp? Sword Demon asked. Although Sword Demon wasn't Brother Yu, he would also study the game settings, just not as crazy as Brother Yu. I'm also confused. Once I went to the Commercial Association to accept a mission, and suddenly they sent me a document saying that I'm a member of the Commercial Trade Alliance, Little Ray said. Ha! You also do missions? Gu Fei interrupted. He was quite surprised. He thought that Little Ray was stationed in Little Ray's bar 24 hours a day. Once in a while, Little Ray said. What's the reward for the camp? Sword Demon asked. The tax paid by the tavern is 20% lower than before, Little Ray said. This. In the eyes of Sword Demon, such a reward was even worse than garbage. Then he asked, is there no skill type? Skill? I chose a bartending recipe. Where's Gongzi? I haven't seen him for a long time. This was the most extraordinary thing about Little Ray. Compared to everyone who hated the Han family young master, he really liked this person. Most tavern owners loved drunkards. He is outside the city now, Sword Demon said. Come to my place when you have time. I'm the only one in the city who has this new wine. Even the System Tavern doesn't have it, Little Ray said excitedly. Is that so? Gu Fei responded, then patted the big barrel on Little Ray's wooden cart and said, What's this? Little Ray said, Isn't this city war to divide the sphere of influence? My friends and I, who were also opening shops in the city, came to the conclusion that the area of influence was closely related to our shop, so we formed a temporary guild to participate in the city war. As a result, I was thrown into the city by myself as soon as I came online. I looked everywhere, but couldn't find anyone. I sent a message to my friends saying that they were enemies, so I couldn't send it. Later, I ran to the business association, and they sent me a mission to transport military supplies to the front. Military supplies? What is it? Gu Fei patted the barrel again, and as he patted, he put his head on it to listen. It sounds like water. There's a cover. Sword Demon pointed to the barrel. Gu Fei immediately wanted to take a look, and Little Ray was anxious. Hey, the quest item, don't break it. I'm just looking, how can it break? Gu Fei said as he lifted it, and his face turned red. He loosened his hand and said, I can't lift it. Little Ray let out a sigh of relief. He was afraid that these two guys would do something again. So he pushed the cart around them and said, I'll send it to the quest location first, and then I'll talk to you guys when I come back. Go ahead. Gu Fei waved his hand to let them go. Little Ray pushed his wooden cart away, and Sword Demon suddenly said to Gu Fei, I have a quest, Little Ray also has a quest, and maybe your camp also has a quest. Well, that's right. I don't know what's going on here, and there's no movement for a long time. I'll go to the city to see if there's a quest, Gu Fei said. Okay, Gu Fei said as he entered the city again. His wanted license was issued by the Wanted Quest office, so his camp should be related to this organization. Gu Fei's heart was a little cold. His camp couldn't be a jailer or a catcher, right? What kind of camp was this? It didn't have any spirit at all. Six-fan school? It couldn't be called that in the game. As Gu Fei thought about it, he arrived at the Wanted Quest office. Pushing open the door, he was greeted by a familiar scene. However, as soon as he spoke to the NPC, the latter informed him that this was a matter of life and death for the city. He no longer had the energy to pay attention to such petty crimes. He needed to find something more meaningful. Besides this place, Gu Fei thought about it, and the only place that had an intersection with his quest was the main city's council hall, so he walked towards the council hall. This was a place that ordinary players had no right to enter, and Gu Fei was easily let go after showing his wanted license. Gu Fei walked around the hall twice, and remembered the incident in Xiaoyu City. That person seemed to be from the guard? After thinking of this, Gu Fei grabbed a guard, asked where the guard was, and walked over there. Butterfly knot. Some students have reported that there was a calculation error before, and the guild was written as 82. Butterfly looked at his own Word document. There were 820 guilds, and I don't know why a zero disappeared. Here's a statement: 170,000 people, 820 guilds, 82 is impossible. On average, each guild needs 2,000 people, and the highest level 6 guild is 1,050 people. Even if all 82 guilds are level 6, There are only 80,000 people, not to mention there are only 5 level 6 guilds in Cloud City. Chapter 668. The guards of Cloud Peak City and Xiaowu City seem to be carved from the same mold. A bunch of miscellaneous soldiers and a captain who looked like a proper person. In this so-called autumn of the city war, they still pretended to exist in the office. As soon as Gu Fei entered the door, the captain stood up. Qianli is drunk, you're here. In the game, an NPC taking the initiative to speak to you is already a kind of quest prompt. After all, there were countless NPCs in and out of the city. If the player took the initiative to ask, "Hello, do you need help?" it would be a bit too much. So in most quests, when the player slipped past the NPC would take the initiative to speak. Players who were familiar with the situation would immediately know. There is a door here. However, for daily quests or wanted quests, the NPC generally didn't have this kind of service. At this time, the captain took the initiative to speak. It seemed that this was a special setting during the city war. Thinking about this, Gu Fei quickly moved closer and followed the NPC's words. I'm here. Cloud City is being attacked by a group of mobs. As a member of the guard, you should take up your own weapon and defend your home. The guard captain of Cloud City said sincerely. Gu Fei was startled. The mystery of his faction was about to be revealed. It turned out that the guard was a faction. But he took the lead to cause trouble in Xiaofog City and killed the captain of the guard there. How should this be counted? Could it be that because the last hit wasn't him, it shouldn't be counted? This didn't seem to be the rule in the parallel world. Who started the fight, the damage output during the fight, and the last hit, these 3 factors were considered comprehensively. To kill Giordano, Gu Fei should be the main person responsible. However, there was no point in dwelling on this at this time. It was obvious that the guard did not treat Gu Fei as an outsider. After Gu Fei quickly expressed his willingness to obey the organization to protect his homeland, the guard captain of Cloud City was pleased to give him a task. Now there is a group of rioters who have kidnapped the civil engineer of Cloud City, Gokino. They want to use his talent to dismantle the defense structure of Cloud City. Now that the city guards are short of manpower, the rescue mission has to be handed over to the guard squad. Qianli is drunk. Go stop their plot and save Gokino. Gu Fei listened to the NPC's words. The guard and the city guards were not from the same system. The quest asked him to stop the mob. Weren't the mob all players? Fighting with others was an endless joy. Gu Fei liked to PK with others, so he happily accepted. According to the scouts, Gokino is currently being held here. Go bring people to rescue him. The captain said. Bring people? Gu Fei was confused. There were only him, the sword demon and Little Ray in the city. Why would he bring people? He agreed and pondered at the same time. The captain had already given his closing words. I wish you good luck. There was no need to be polite with the NPC. Gu Fei did not say goodbye, and went out the door. He did not expect to hear footsteps behind him. When he turned around, he saw that the 4 soldiers who were originally in the guard squad room had followed him out the door. Gu Fei did not care at first, but when he went downstairs and left the meeting hall, he found that the 4 soldiers were still following him. Gu Fei was puzzled. Why are they following me? To rescue Gokino. The 4 soldiers bowed to Gu Fei and answered respectfully. So there really were people. They actually sent me 4 NPCs. What is this? Pets. Gu Fei did not know much about the game. It was a pity that he recognized these 4 soldiers as pets. But these pets did not make Gu Fei happy at all. These 4 soldiers as helpers made him feel that the difficulty of the mission had increased. According to Gu Fei's thinking, the players outside the city did not know that he was an enemy, so he could walk among them openly. But now that he was followed by 4 system soldiers, wouldn't he become the target of public criticism? But then he thought about it again. Most people would not think that these 4 soldiers were led by him. When he walked into the crowd, the players could attack him as they pleased. He would let these 4 people fend for themselves. Fortunately, these 4 soldiers were just system NPCs without any thoughts. If a living person knew of Gu Fei's thoughts, they would really die from anger. They were willing to risk their lives for him. He had already made up his mind to not care if they lived or died. After Gu Fei left the council hall, he sent a message to Sword Demon. I received a mission. How is it outside? Is there a fight? No, what mission did you receive? Sword Demon asked. Save people. They even sent me helpers. Gu Fei said. What helpers? Sword Demon asked. For soldiers. Gu Fei said. There's such a thing? Come and take a look. It was common for the system to send NPCs to follow the players. Wasn't it like the chain quest from Reigning the Four Seas? It was an escort quest. But the NPCs were sent to help the players fight. Moreover, there were 4 of them. Sword Demon had never heard of such a thing. The two met up in the city. The 4 soldiers followed Gu Fei closely. At this time, Gu Fei stood down and talked to Sword Demon. The 4 soldiers stood in a square behind him and stood orderly. It's just these 4? Hey, this is new. I've never heard of them. Sword Demon walked up and looked at the NPC curiously. The NPC didn't have any psychological qualities. He didn't care about Sword Demon's look at him at all. I have to hurry. My mission is on time. After Gu Fei received the mission and left, a countdown appeared in the mission list. There was a total of 2 hours. The parallel world map was too big. Usually, it would take a lot of time just to travel in the game. A 2-hour mission time wasn't long. Where are we going to save people? Sword Demon asked. The captain's service was very good. He gave him the coordinates and a map. The map was not very clear, but the coordinates were more important. Gu Fei said the coordinates, and Sword Ghost calculated that it was a little far away. He quickly nodded and said, Yes, we have to hurry. I'll go with you. Sword Ghost didn't have a chance to look for white and black, so he had nothing to do. The north gate is still the same. No one is moving? Gu Fei asked. Yes. We can't go out like that. It's too conspicuous. We have to go to the other 3 gates. Gu Fei said. These coordinates should be closest to the west gate. Let's go out from the west gate. Sword Demon suggested. The 2 of them walked toward the west gate. Along the way, Sword Ghost clicked his tongue in wonder at the 4 guards. I wonder how strong these 4 guys are? Sword Demon said. Let's try. Gu Fei said. How? Sword Demon asked. Gu Fei pointed at Sword Demon. Attack! The 4 guards were really obedient. They immediately pulled out their swords and charged at Sword Demon. Gu Fei laughed. You try. Sword Demon was flustered by his sudden attack. He hurriedly dodged 2 attacks and shouted. How can I try? What if I attack and kill them? Kill them then kill them. They're a burden anyway. Let's see if you've made any progress these past few days. Gu Fei said. Sword Demon heard this and became spirited. These past 2 days he had been fighting monsters according to Gu Fei's instructions, and felt more and more comfortable. Using these methods to fight monsters might not be as efficient as he wanted, but Sword Demon was already strongly aware of the huge changes this method would bring in PK. What's more, the inefficiency of leveling was only because he hadn't reached the level yet. If he could reach Gu Fei's level, his efficiency would definitely be amazing. How could Sword Demon not see the foundation of this efficient leveling method? However, although Sword Demon had fighting spirit, he was currently majoring in a one-on-one course. With each additional opponent, the difficulty would increase exponentially. Sword Demon once courageously pulled 2 monsters to practice, but he almost lost his life. Later, he practiced hard for a few days, and was planning to take 2 more to practice. Today, 4 came directly. The 4 soldiers also attacked and defended. The 4 people still stood in a square, but they surrounded Sword Demon in the middle. 4 swords slashed down from 4 angles. Sword Demon had done his best and dodged 3 swords, but was hit by the 4th sword. The more Sword Demon practiced, the more he understood. It was clear that with his current level, it was too difficult to use this method to deal with these 4. But he couldn't just give in after 1 move, right? Sword Demon's tenacity came again. He clenched his teeth and persevered. Gu Fei understood people better than him. After 2 rounds, he basically predicted the situation. He waved his hand, "Stop attacking." The 4 soldiers immediately put away their swords and stopped. Sword Demon looked over blankly. Gu Fei said, "Even if you can't kill them, you still have a mission. Hurry up." Sword Demon was quite ashamed. The skills of the NPCs in the system were basically the same. When it came to their strength, it generally looked at them in numbers, such as attack, speed, health, defense, and whether they had any special skills. Although Sword Demon only lasted 2 rounds, he still took 2 swords. After looking at the damage, he said, "Attack is quite average, speed isn't fast, health and defense, I don't know. But looking at this attack and speed, it's the strength of a normal monster." "And why else would the system send you 4 missed assassins?" Gu Fei said. "You don't say. Today, I went to the Thief Guild. Because of the faction, I found out that there is a secret area in the Thief Guild, which is the territory of the Assassin Alliance. There are all kinds of NPC assassins there, and I think there is one that looks like a missed assassin," Sword Demon said. "But it can't be the one who wrote the diary, right?" Gu Fei said. You got lost in Cloud Fog City again." The Sword Ghost laughed. As the two spoke, they were already out of the West Gate. The West Gate was not like the North Gate. Sword of Unsworn went against the flow. They gathered guilds, and some people were willing to work together to command them, while others were willing to continue to have their own sovereignty. Most of these people who were unwilling to go were small to medium guilds. This was because people who understood the situation knew that even if the big guilds joined the alliance, they would have a lot of status and sovereignty, and the weaker guilds could only follow orders from behind. Many people didn't like this kind of feeling. They would rather have a small fight and just have fun. These players were relaxed, and there were quite a few of them. At this time, the West Gate was in full swing. Dead. So what if they died? They didn't lose anything. They could revive at the revival point, repair their equipment, and then continue. These leisurely players paid the price of death, which indirectly formed the plan of Sword of Unsworn's side. When one row fell, another row would take over, and it would be a battle of attrition with the system. And in the process of continuous fighting, what rock-shattering attacks? An assassin lying in ambush. They had all seen these methods before. When Gu Fei and Sword Demon went out of the West Gate, the players here once again rushed to the bottom of the city wall, causing the guards below to charge and kill them. Without a unified command and a unified plan, the players didn't know if their attacks had shaken the system's defense. In any case, they didn't back down and were having fun as they died and got back up again and again. Although they didn't form an alliance through formal negotiations, they also built a comradely revolutionary friendship in this kind of battle. When they saw the players around them being attacked, they would take the initiative to help. After that, they looked at each other and smiled. They didn't care who the other party was, and they didn't care if the other party stole their guild's points. Compared to the North Gate, their sacrifices were more tragic, but they fought very happily. Because to them, whether they lived or died, it was fun. "Hey, it's lively here," Gu Fei exclaimed. "Yeah. It looks like someone at the North Gate is giving orders to control the players' attacks. Although it's messy here, it's quite fun to watch," Sword Demon said. "It's not easy to fight like this," Gu Fei said. "Where should we find a place to sneak over?" Sword Demon counted the coordinates while calculating the direction. "Don't worry about it, just charge into the crowd. If someone attacks these 4 guys, pretend we don't know them," Gu Fei said. "Why?" Sword Demon asked. "These 4 guys will expose our identity. They'll be a burden," Gu Fei said. "That's too wasteful." Sword Demon liked to experience the fun of the game. It was rare to have 4 NPCs listen to him, so he was a bit reluctant to sacrifice them. He thought about it and said, "Do you think we can disguise them?" "Disguise how?" "System soldiers, you see, they can be recognized as NPCs at a glance, mainly because their clothes are too NPC. It's very orthodox. Give them some equipment, and I don't think they'll be recognized as NPCs at a glance," Sword Demon said. "Will it work?" Gu Fei was puzzled. "Tell them to remove their equipment and see if they listen," Sword Demon said. Gu Fei immediately ordered, "Remove the armor." The 4 soldiers obediently took off their armor from head to toe, and each of them wore a tight-fitting underwear. "It really works." Gu Fei was surprised. "Hurry up and put on their equipment." "Wait here." Sword Demon flew over. The city gate was very close to the warehouse. Sword Demon's warehouse also had a lot of inventory, so it wasn't a problem to take care of the 4 people. This wasn't equipment but disguise. Places like accessories were empty, so there was no need to care. The 4 soldiers listened to Gu Fei's arrangements and put on the equipment that Sword Demon brought. As expected, they didn't look like NPCs. At first glance, 2 thieves, 1 warrior, and 1 priest looked very much like players. I don't know what good equipment NPCs use, Sword Demon muttered at this time, picking up the equipment that the soldiers changed out of. At the same time, he carefully stared at them, worried that they wouldn't let him touch their equipment. In the end, the soldiers ignored Sword Demon. Sword Demon picked up the soldier's armor and looked at it. He was very excited. Damn, it's a set. A 5-piece set. The system soldier's equipment was a green equipment set, consisting of a helmet, armor, belt, combat boots, and gauntlets. The 4 rows of additional attributes were enough to make people excited. At the moment, there were no players with so many parts in an equipment set. Sword Demon was excited, but he suddenly saw a row of words on the equipment. Mission item, cannot be equipped. Damn, this was too disappointing. Gu Fei also came over to take a look. Sword Demon put the equipment back. Put away all the equipment. Gu Fei tried to give the order. The soldiers were really smart. They even knew how to use the pocket function on the player's equipment and put their armor into their pockets. It's about time. I think we can really get through this. Let's go, Gu Fei said. The 2 of them and the 4 soldiers rushed out of the city gate together and quickly blended into the fierce battle between the players and the system guards. At this time, the guards and the players were fighting in close combat. The catapults on the city wall had stopped. The mages didn't use area of effect spells. They observed the situation with the archers and shot. Everything was as Gu Fei expected. The system guards treated them as partners and didn't attack them at all. In the eyes of the players, they were also comrades. Naturally, they wouldn't make things difficult for them. Some players just happened to see these 6 guys running in the opposite direction. They thought they were being chased and jumped out to cut them off. In the end, they didn't find anything. They just watched the 6 of them pass through the formation without stopping. Since the camp was a spontaneous battle without any organization, no one paid any attention to the 6 people going against the flow. The main spirit of the battle here was, do what you want to do, even if you don't want to fight anymore, and run to the leveling area to level up. Gu Fei, Sword Demon, and the other 4 soldiers ran away from the battlefield in one breath. After running all the way, Sword Demon came to another conclusion. These 4 guys aren't slow. Gu Fei and Sword Demon both had outstanding movement speed among the players. However, these 4 soldiers were all warrior type, yet they had this movement speed. This was how unreasonable the system was. It might be specially coordinated with my movement speed. Otherwise, why would I coordinate with their movement speed? That wouldn't be an escort mission. Gu Fei said. Makes sense. Sword Demon nodded. He looked at the coordinates again and pointed to the front. It's over there. We're almost there. I think this may be similar to a 2-way mission. There should be some players here who received the mission to use this engineer to attack the city. Now my mission is to destroy this mission of theirs. Well, then let's approach carefully now, Sword Demon suggested. What are you afraid of? They definitely won't guess that we're actually opponents, Gu Fei said. Then why don't we mask ourselves? Otherwise, we'll be exposed this time. Sword Demon's vision was very far-sighted. You're quite treacherous, Gu Fei exclaimed. Sword Demon was sincere. Boss, my mission hasn't been completed yet. It turned out that he was thinking about this. Gu Fei smiled, so he took this suggestion and covered his face with a cloth. He thought that the team should have a unified style, so he waved to the 4 guards. Cover your faces. Butterfly knot. 4 NPC soldiers appeared in this chapter. Cough. That lion's mouth was wide open. He wanted 4 small characters at a time, claiming that they were for the 4 brothers in the dormitory. For soldiers, take them. Don't be polite. Chapter 669. The soldiers were very smart and understood the meaning of the mask. But to mask, There had to be cloth first. The soldiers obviously didn't have it, but they knew how to make it themselves. They picked up the corner of the clothes with one hand and pulled it with the other. With a rip sound, the mask was torn off. Sword Demon's heart was broken. The equipment on the soldier's body belonged to him. Could it still be used after it was torn? The sword ghost hurriedly used identification on it, and sure enough, a modifier was added in front of the good equipment. Tattered. The word was still the same, but the quality of the equipment had dropped significantly. What followed was the drop in attributes. The sword ghost wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He inspected the 4 soldiers one by one, and only the warrior's armor was intact. The armor was made from a full set of refined armor, and there was no cloth that could be torn, so the soldier tore off his underwear. But the 3 of them came in whatever way was convenient. 2 thief equipment and 1 priest equipment were all tattered. Sword Ghost's heart ached to the point of dying. The priest equipment was one thing. He had only obtained it by accident. Seeing that it had some value, he didn't casually throw it away. He would sell it when he had the time. However, those 2 thief equipment were for his own use. It hadn't been easy for him to collect them, but now they were completely destroyed. Gu Fei didn't notice Sword Demon's pain, and was still praising the 4 soldiers. Really, they came in whatever way was convenient. This one is smart enough. He knew that the armor couldn't be torn, so he went to tear the underwear. Tskta. My equipment. Can you stop giving random orders? Sword Demon was really distressed. If he didn't remind them, he was afraid that Gu Fei would give another reckless order and destroy his collection again. Oh, you still want these equipment? Gu Fei asked. Everyone was different. The items that Sword Ghoul had placed in the warehouse were all top-notch items that were worth storing. Gu Fei, on the other hand, was a person who would casually throw things into the warehouse. Other than collecting weapons that suited him, he had no desire for other equipment. Moreover, weapons that suited him were things that he could use at any time, so he kept them all in his pockets instead of storing them in the warehouse. Yes, all of them. Sword Demon quickly responded. Oh. Gu Fei nodded. At the same time, he discovered that the soldiers were quite obedient. They were able to find a way to do things like not wearing a cloth and a mask, which they could not do at first. Ripping off the equipment with one hand? Not even players could do such a thing. Otherwise, when PvP, he could go up and tear apart the other party's equipment and lower the other party's attributes. He would be invincible. Thinking of this, Gu Fei suddenly had an idea, and said to the 4 soldiers, Stealth. Stealth was a skill exclusive to thieves. Could these warriors learn it as well? The Sword Demon stared at the 4 soldiers nervously. Players didn't like to see NPCs acting like rascals, as it would make them feel mentally unbalanced. In fact, every player had a dream. That was to have a versatile character with all the characteristics of the class. This dream was very unrealistic, but if they saw that NPCs could realize this dream, players would be very unhappy. The 4 soldiers listened to the order, and there was no hesitation or confusion on their faces. They crouched down and looked for a boulder or dead tree that could be used as cover, shrinking their bodies behind it. Gu Fei and the Sword Demon looked at each other. The soldiers were too smart. They actually used this method to carry out stealth. Thinking of this, Gu Fei felt that it was too stupid to think of a way to get rid of the 4 soldiers. Couldn't he just give them an order to wait in the city? Wait. Gu Fei felt that it wasn't too late to give this order. The 4 soldiers immediately stopped moving. Let's go. Gu Fei said. Go where? The Sword Demon asked. Where do you think we should go? The quest. Gu Fei said. What about them? Wait here so they don't get in the way. Gu Fei said. Don't bring them along to play. The Sword Demon was reluctant to part with the 4 soldiers like he was reluctant to part with his equipment. How interesting. Gu Fei really didn't know how lucky he was. Such a fun setting, and he actually became a burden. Then you bring them along. Gu Fei said. You don't listen to me. The Sword Demon said. Gu Fei thought about it and said to the soldiers, listen to him. Does it work? The Sword Demon was puzzled and ordered the soldiers, stand up. No NPC cared. The Sword Demon was depressed. You do it. Get up and follow. Gu Fei said. The 4 soldiers got up, lined up, and stood behind Gu Fei. The sword demon was jealous to death. The soldiers will go back after the quest is over, right? If I were you, I wouldn't complete the quest and play a little longer. Gu Fei looked at him. You mean to say that we should first bring some people to help you complete the quest? Absolutely not. The sword demon hurriedly said. Why don't you understand? Isn't it fun to take 4 soldiers? What's fun? Isn't it fun? Is it fun? Okay, stop arguing. Quest. The sword demon interrupted the argument. This was a conflict of ideas. There would certainly be a conflict between a person who didn't take the game seriously and a person who was absolutely loyal to the game. So the 2 of them continued to move forward with the 4 soldiers. Their faces were covered. Seeing the coordinates gradually approaching, the terrain in front of them was getting lower. It was obvious that a pit was going to appear. The sword demon looked around in surprise. There wasn't a pit here before. It's specially arranged. It seems like it's here, Gu Fei said. Let's go. Not stealthily? By stealthily, the sword ghost was referring to sneaking in like the 4 soldiers. No need. That would be suspicious. They'll think we're on the same side, Gu Fei said. Makes sense. As for the mask, it wasn't anything suspicious. The mask was also a common headgear, especially among assassins. In addition, there were no class requirements for equipment in the parallel world. So it was very common for mages, priests, and warriors to wear a mask. Of course, as long as they used appraisal, it would immediately be revealed whether the cloth was equipment or mask. However, Gu Fei and the others didn't mind this. The mask was indeed a mask for them. Anyway, once they started fighting, the other party would definitely know that they were players with bad intentions. There was no need to hide too much. The 2 of them and the 4 NPCs pretended to be a passing team and walked casually. Before they reached the edge of the pit, Gu Fei had already sent a message to the sword demon. There's a thief. The sword demon knew that he had found a thief in stealth and immediately replied, It's an ambush. Well, pretend that we don't know and continue walking. Let's see their reaction. Gu Fei said, pretending that he didn't know there was a thief and continued to walk forward. However, at this time, a few players had already climbed out of the pit. A warrior in front of them took the initiative to ask, You guys, which guild are you from? Gu Fei and the sword demon were stunned when they saw the people coming up. Their heads subconsciously turned to look in other directions. However, someone on the other side already said, You think I can't recognize you 2 just because you're masked? Gu Fei and the sword demon were helpless. They couldn't help it, they were too familiar with each other. Among the few people who came up from the pit, the Han family young master was impressively among them. The 2 of them also saw that the row of people on the other side clearly had the guild badge of Singing to Wine hanging on their chests. It seemed that the people from Singing to Wine had discovered this mission. Since they were already recognized, what was the point of hiding? Gu Fei waved his hand to remove the mask, pulled out his sword and knocked on the ground. Mission. If there's nothing else, run. Although Gu Fei was famous, not many people knew him in person. However, his behavior was well known in Cloud City. The warrior who spoke before was stunned. He looked back at the Han family young master and wondered, Is it Qianli drunk? Obviously, he also knew that Qianli drunk and the Han family young master were companions of the mercenary group. Well, if you know, why aren't you running? Gu Fei purposely acted arrogantly to provoke the other party's anger. He was worried that the other party would turn around and run after hearing his name. As his reputation grew, the probability of this happening increased. However, this time, he had clearly underestimated the importance Wine when Singing would place on this mission. Hearing that he would not back down even half a step, the warrior frowned and said, Is the Amethyst Rebirth trying to steal our mission? This warrior knew Gu Fei quite well. He even knew that Gu Fei was a member of the Girls' Guild, Reborn Amethyst. This was something that Gu Fei always felt embarrassed about. Now that it was brought up in public, he actually blushed and said, It has nothing to do with the guild. Then what are you doing? Before the warrior could ask, the Han family young master already waved his hand. Stand back. What? The bystanders were shocked. They thought that the Han family young master was siding with his mercenary group. This was not a secret in Singing to Wine. Everyone knew that the top cleric of the Han family young master's focus was on his mercenary group. As for the guild, leveling up and activities, he would participate if he wanted to and not if he didn't want to. It was very unreliable. As a member of a big guild, he became famous by mingling in a random party every day. This made the outside world think that Singing to Wine was jealous of the talented and excluded the top players. However, the Han family young master simply replied, "Avoid the distance of his teleportation." Normal players might not know about the situation of Gu Fei and the Sword Demon. But how could the Han family young master not know about it? After sending messages about enemies, he saw the two wandering around the city through his binoculars. They even fired a cannon and killed Black Rose. With the intelligence of the Han family young master, he had already determined that these two were enemies this time. However, he did not expect to meet them so coincidentally. Of course. It's too late. Gu Fei laughed and teleported behind the row of people. As soon as he touched the ground, the trap on the ground bounced up and heat rose. The sky was bright with fire. The Han family young master turned around and looked at him. "What do you mean it's too late? You tricked me." Gu Fei was depressed. This time he had teleported over, so he didn't step on the trap. Plus, he was a little careless this time. He couldn't react in time when the trap popped out, and he was caught firmly in the trap. At this time, he saw the whole picture of the pit. A few simple tents, a bonfire, and a lot of mages. In terms of mages, Singing to Wine was definitely the best in Cloud City. When Gu Fei glanced at the Han family young master, he already saw his hand behind his back. He didn't have time to stop gesturing to the mages. Now that the soles of his feet were hot and the sky was bright, it was obvious that the mages had started to move according to his instructions. This guy was purposely gesturing for the others to retreat. In fact, he was luring Gu Fei over. After fighting side by side for so long, he knew Gu Fei's style too well. He knew that Gu Fei didn't talk much and liked to fight as soon as possible. Charge! Gu Fei felt that if he died like this, it would be embarrassing enough. No matter what, he had to leave something behind. With a command, the 4 soldiers jumped out and lined up in a row. They drew their swords from their waists and charged forward. This was something that even the Han family young master didn't expect. Among the 4 of them, one was dressed like a warrior. Who would have thought that all 4 of them were warriors? They were more familiar with the charge skill than many experts. Moreover, the 4 of them moved in unison. In the blink of an eye, 4 sharp swords filled with a murderous aura shot towards the young master of the Han family. The warrior who had spoken earlier had actually lowered his head and activated charge. It seemed that he was quite confident in his own strength. Everyone else had already scattered in all directions to dodge. And Gu Fei was the one who was exposed to the muzzle of the charge. This was what Gu Fei wanted. He immediately ordered the soldier who was rushing towards him, "Be gentle." The soldier's sword stabbed into Gu Fei's waist. At this time, the ground was already on fire. Gu Fei's HP was already half burned. If he didn't have a lot more HP than normal mages, he would have already turned into white light. The soldier didn't know how to understand the "be gentle" order. In any case, the sword stabbed Gu Fei and sent him flying. The fire wheel that fell from the sky almost brushed past his body. The damage from the fire on the ground had already stopped. Gu Fei's people flew towards the group of mages. This was what he was hoping for. As a mage, he understood the characteristics of mages. If he flew into the group, the opponent would not be able to use AoE spells immediately. They would hurt their own people. Unexpectedly, the Han family young master had already ordered a few mages to point at where Gu Fei was about to land. AoE spells. Gu Fei was depressed. He forgot that the other party's commander was this inhumane guy. What do you mean by hurting our own people? Why would this guy care about this kind of thing? Moreover, the current setting was that people who died would not drop their levels. Unexpectedly, the few mages did not move after hearing the Han family young master's order. Instead, they looked at him in confusion. "There's one of us." The Han family young master was even more depressed than Gu Fei. He knew that this was probably the only chance to kill Gu Fei. Unexpectedly, These people did not understand his intention. Did they not have eyes? Did they not know that they were on the same side? What he meant was for them to blow them up as well. How could those pieces of trash compare to Qianli's drunkenness? It was too late for the Han family young master to say these things. Gu Fei fell into the group of mages. Without any AoE spells, some of the mages thought that they were smart enough to use small fireballs. However, they did not expect that Gu Fei would casually wave his sword and extinguish all the fireballs. Two of the mages who used ice whirlwinds were also roasted by Gu Fei's dual flame flash. However, Gu Fei was still unable to move. This trap was obviously set by an expert, and it was not over yet. Gu Fei looked back and saw that the 4 soldiers had intelligently engaged in battle with the players after using charge. Meanwhile, the soldier who used charge against the warrior ended up in a draw. But this was enough to surprise the warrior. The warrior in front of him was wearing a priest's robe. At this time, Gu Fei had only solved the urgent problem. The trap had not fallen off, and he was trapped in the enemy's formation. Looking at the 4 soldiers, Gu Fei suddenly had an idea. He shouted at the 4 people, "Earth Splitter, jump in. Don't hurt me." Gu Fei had seen the system guards use this skill in Shady Forest City. The 4 soldiers in front of him obviously did not have the strength of those divine guards, but they should be quite versatile in terms of skills. Gu Fei tried to shout, and the 4 soldiers suddenly let go of the opponents in front of them and rushed into the pit in unison. Suddenly, they rose from the ground, held the sharp weapons in their hands, and slashed down heavily on the ground. The mages were stunned. This skill had not been circulated among the players at all. At most, some people had seen the official demonstration video. They did not expect it to suddenly appear in front of them at this moment, and there were 4 of them at once. The 4 warriors landed together, and the ground cracked where their feet landed. All the players felt the earth tremble, especially those who were in the attack range of the Earth Splitter. The shaking was especially violent, and their health dropped. And Gu Fei was in the middle of it, but he did not suffer any damage at all. That "don't hurt me" was really useful. The system's accuracy was definitely far better than any player's. The 4 Earth Splitter made the mages dizzy, but Gu Fei was not affected at all. "Beautiful," Gu Fei shouted, and at the same time shouted at the sword demon, "It's quite fun. Stop being so long-winded. Tell them to change their equipment, whirlwind slash." The sword demon was also fighting with someone, and he wanted to save Gu Fei, but he did not have the chance. In the end, he saw that Gu Fei's command of the soldiers was really beautiful, especially the Earth Splitter. It was hard for Gu Fei to remember that the system guards had such a skill. Change back to the original equipment, whirlwind slash. Gu Fei was afraid that the soldiers would not know what equipment to change after hearing it, so he deliberately added the word original as a rhetorical device. The 4 soldiers were like transformers. In an instant, they took off their unsuitable equipment, took out their original armor, and quickly equipped themselves. Only then did the 4 murderous warriors reveal themselves. They then executed Gu Fei's second command, whirlwind slash. The storm of sharp blades swept through the group of mages. The mages were a little dumbfounded when they heard Gu Fei's commands. Those who reacted quickly were already running when they heard him say whirlwind slash. But the mages' legs were really not that fast. The 4 warriors used whirlwind slash together, strangling them into a river of white light. During this time, the sword demon shouted, "Equipment! Tell them to pack up their equipment." Sword demon's pile of equipment was directly thrown on the ground after they were changed. Obviously, the system guard's equipment did not have the design of pockets. They had nowhere to put it, so they could only throw it away. "Wait a moment," Gu Fei responded. He saw a strong gust of wind sweeping the back of his neck, and he quickly shrank his head to avoid being cut by the tip of the sword. Thinking that he seemed to have missed an order, he quickly reminded, "Don't hurt me." It seemed that in the big battle royale, when these guys used this kind of area of effect attack, this command was indispensable. Gu Fei concluded. Chapter 670. When the soldier was wearing the priest robe, he was already able to hold his own against the expert warriors. Now that he was equipped with a set of equipment that made Sword Ghoul gasp in admiration. He was like a tiger that had grown wings. There was no way that the mages could withstand this attack. In an instant, several streaks of white light appeared, and a few of the weaker mages with slow reactions were killed. Gu Fei realized that he couldn't do anything, so he tried his best to think of a solution. Suddenly, an idea popped up in his mind, and he yelled at one of the soldiers, "Help me remove this trap." The trap was stuck in his foot, and he couldn't remove it himself. After all, this was a game. If you wanted to remove the trap, then you had to have the corresponding skill to remove the trap. Gu Fei saw that these 4 soldiers were so capable, so he wanted to see if they knew how to remove the trap as well. The soldier obeyed and squatted down to remove the trap clip that was still stuck in Gu Fei's foot. But this time, Gu Fei was disappointed. The soldier pulled the trap, and Gu Fei was dragged half a meter away from the ground. There were no signs of the trap falling off. It was obvious that the soldier didn't know how to remove the trap, but since Gu Fei wanted him to do it, he obeyed. He just had to pull the trap down. But he didn't care if he could pull it off or not. Gu Fei quickly said, Okay, go do your thing." In the end, the soldier didn't understand. He continued to grab the trap clip and dragged Gu Fei half a meter away. Gu Fei quickly gave a clear command, "Stop, go fight." The soldier got up and went to kill the mages without looking back. The drunken song players were in a mess. Although the Han family young master was shouting at the side to keep the situation under control, he was someone who rarely interacted with the guild, and had no prestige in the hearts of the players. Suddenly, he wanted people to listen to him in the middle of an event. How could there be such a good thing in this world? Going against the current, on the other hand, trusted his abilities and assigned him to a very important mission. When the situation was calm, everyone could still listen to young Master Han's commands as a reasonable suggestion. But now that the battlefield was suddenly in chaos, young Master Han, who had no prestige, had no expectations in the hearts of these people. No one paid any attention to his words. Even against the current believed in the Han family young master's unpredictable planning and cleric skills, but he didn't hand over the command of this mission to someone he wasn't familiar with. The warrior who asked the question and charge was the real commander of this mission. This warrior was called Manchuan. His equipment wasn't too eye-catching, but he was an old comrade who had grown up with against the current. He was one of the core members of the guild, and his skill and awareness were quite good. His equipment wasn't too good, but it had a lot to do with luck. As long as there was a commander, the situation wouldn't be as chaotic as it seemed. Unfortunately, Manchuan was no longer around. Sword Ghoul and the other veterans immediately knew that he was the leader, and they also understood the importance of capturing the leader first. They immediately used a misty ambush on Manchuan, and Manchuan didn't even have the time to give any commands before he went to the resurrection point. Manchuan wasn't the only one outside the crater. There were a few others who had come up with him, including the young master of the Han family, as well as a few stealth thieves. Everyone was in a state of chaos. Some wanted to go down and deal with the 4 warriors, while others wanted to come up and capture Sword Ghoul. Sword Ghoul was incredibly experienced. After killing Manchuan, he started moving around to deal with these people. After circling a few times, he once again found a target to attack. Impressively, he charged towards the Han family young master. Gu Fei couldn't move in the pit, but he could see everything clearly. He saw the sword demon kill Manchuan, and then charged towards the Han family young master. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Sword demon, you're really too serious." Currently, no one was listening to the Han family young master's words. However, if they continued to attack randomly, it was very likely that his continuous command would gradually be heard by the others, and they would start to follow his orders. The Han family young master had thought of this. Therefore, although no one was listening to his commands, his voice didn't stop, and he continued to give out orders while looking at the chaotic state of the players. The incomparably experienced sword demon had also determined this point. After killing Manchuan, he immediately attacked the Han family young master. He had no intention of going easy on him. The Han family young master smiled disapprovingly and said, "Not killing me right away is your biggest mistake. It's not too late." The sword demon was indeed very serious. He didn't even smile as he stabbed forward with his sword. Although the Han family young master wasn't a combat class, his reaction was quite quick. He actually dodged the attack. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a long sword to return the blow to the sword demon. Gu Fei was shocked and cried out, "You secretly learned my martial arts." The Han family young master turned around and glanced at him. "Is there even a need to learn? Just take a look and you'll know." Gu Fei couldn't stand people looking down on his martial arts. However, the trap on his leg didn't come off, and he was extremely anxious. On the other side, the sword demon and the Han family young master were fighting each other. After taking a few more glances, Gu Fei couldn't help but laugh. "What are you doing? You're just putting on an act." Gu Fei was actually feeling quite pain just now. He had painstakingly trained his martial arts for so many years, but the Han family young master just casually watched him PK in the game and learned it. This was too unbalanced. At this time, after watching the Han family young master play a few more times, he realized that it was just an empty stance. He was just imitating the moves that Gu Fei used before. Hearing that Gu Fei had seen through it, he said helplessly, "That's true." However, even Gu Fei was deceived by this move, let alone the sword demon. Moreover, the sword demon knew that this guy's brain wasn't human. Maybe he really watched Gu Fei's fights and learned a lot of martial arts, so he was very careful. Gu Fei could see that the Han family young master was putting on an act after a few moves, but the sword demon didn't have this ability and was still being careful. After hearing Gu Fei's words, he came to a realization. It turned out that they were all empty moves. However, it was too late to react. There was still a group of people chasing after the sword demon. They had already caught up. The sword demon wasn't Gu Fei, and he wasn't weak against the drinking and singing players. The sword demon really wasn't a match for such a group of people, so he could only give up the opportunity to kill the Han family young master and move to another position. You there. Mages attack that side, you two go into stealth." The Han family young master didn't care. Seeing the group of pursuers in front of him, he casually commanded them. However, he didn't know their names. This was a little troublesome. This group of people had long lost their backbone. It was like playing football without tactics. They only knew how to chase after the ball. Now that someone suddenly gave them directions, it was as if a bright light had lit up in their hearts. The thing that the Han family young master was looking forward to, and the thing that the sword demon was worried about finally happened. The chaotic players started to accept the commands of the Han family young master. At this time, it had to be said that the drinking and singing guild had given orders. When something happened here, someone had already sent a message to inform upstream. The channel was filled with shouts. Upstream wanted to find Man Chuan to understand the situation, but he received a message from Man Chuan saying, "I'm dead." The leader was already dead. Wasn't this a group of dragons without a leader? As the guild leader, Upstream knew the seriousness of the situation. He was also very clear about the abilities of the Han family young master. Just as he was about to order everyone to listen to the commands of the Han family young master, he received news that the ambushers were Qianli drunk and the sword demon. All of a sudden, Upstream began to hesitate. At this time, the Han family young master sent him a message. "If you don't say something, you're going to die." The Han family young master wasn't stupid enough to wait for those people to accept him. He would find the fastest way to make those people listen to him. Of course, this was the guild leader's order. Smart people didn't need too much explanation. The message from the Han family young master, Upstream knew what he was referring to. However, he still cautiously asked about the situation over there. After learning from his confidant that the Han family young master really didn't hold back against the two people, he gritted his teeth and ordered the people in the guild to listen to the commands of the Han family young master. At this time, the group of people who were chasing after the sword demon outside the pit had begun to automatically accept the commands of the Han family young master. The people in the pit were still at a loss, but when Upstream's order came, their hopes were ignited again. What was more disappointing was that someone actually asked, "Who is the Han family young master?" "Light Priest, the one who looks very unique." Upstream was very concerned about the quest here, and quickly wanted to use the fastest way to describe it. However, he quickly remembered that the Han family young master could also see it in the guild channel. Saying that a man looks like a woman, or a woman looks like a man, was obviously not something to be happy about. In a hurry, Upstream changed his words. After obtaining the command, the first thing that the Han family young master thought of was to get rid of Gu Fei. Just when he was about to turn around and deploy to Gu Fei's side, he saw Gu Fei somersaulting happily and flicking the trap away with his sword. He said excitedly, "It's done! Mages, retreat out of the pit. Archers, attack Qianli drunk. Warriors, escort him. Priests, don't worry about the mages, protect the warriors. Everyone, move towards the 4 o'clock direction." Han family young master's command was a long list, and the target was Gu Fei. In comparison, Gu Fei's command was much simpler. He pointed at the Han family young master and only said 2 words, "Attack." The whirlwind slash of the minions was not unlimited, and had already stopped at this time. The players who had been drinking and singing came back to their senses. Now that they had a leader, they gritted their teeth and prepared to counterattack. Their hatred was quite clear. Gu Fei and the others did not really care about them, but they hated the 4 little soldiers to the core. However, when Gu Fei threw the trap, he did not need the minions to take care of him anymore. He actually sent the 4 minions to attack the Han family young master. No matter how smart the Han family young master was, he could not figure out the identity of the 4 guards at this moment. He only felt that it was strange when he saw that they were obedient to Gu Fei's command without hesitation. At this moment, a player suddenly shouted in astonishment, "They are NPCs!" At this moment, someone came back to his senses and began to use identification on the opponents to determine the situation. The 4 warriors were exposed after the appraisal. The Han family young master also came to his senses. He did not expect such a plot to happen. The 4 minions had the speed of non-minions. They charged toward the Han family young master briskly. The Han family young master had a clear understanding of the situation. He immediately gave the order, "Ice whirlwind." As he gave the order, he turned around and ran. He did not want to stand still and wait for his death. The players who were singing and drinking in the pit followed the orders of the Han family young master. They adjusted their formation while the archers harassed Gu Fei with homing arrows. Gu Fei had been exercising his limbs for a long time, and he was already invigorated. Moreover, when he was immobile, he had eaten some fruits to replenish his mana. At this moment when he shouted, "I'm coming," he ignored the Han family young master and ran to the side where there were more people. "Ice whirlwind, 2 rows, stop him. Spread out a sea of fire. Warriors and magicians, cover in front. Move back as a whole. Try to stay at least 6 meters away from him, and exhaust his mana." The Han family young master gave the order quickly. Of course, he could not say it out loud to let Gu Fei know. When a string of words appeared in the channel, Gu Fei was knocking down a few homing arrows that were flying toward him. The ice whirlwind had already formed a row and was blowing toward him. Just as the Han family young master expected, Gu Fei did not dodge at all. He immediately used dual flame flash. Based on the priority of the skill, the one with the highest damage would win. The row of ice whirlwinds was swept away by Gu Fei. He was about to charge forward, but he did not expect there to be another row of ice whirlwinds behind him. Gu Fei took a few steps back. When he saw that the cooldown of teleportation had just ended, he waved his hand and passed through the obstacle in a flash. In the end, he was met with an overwhelming sea of fire. He tricked me again. Gu Fei's face was full of tears as he stared hatefully at the Han family young master's side. This arrangement, step by step, was just waiting for him to step on it. There was no helping it. This guy understood his fighting habits too well. Looking at the front of the enemy formation, the warriors were already waiting. If Gu Fei's dual flame flash didn't turn around and deal double damage, he would not be able to insta-kill the current high-level warriors. And because of the Han family young master's understanding of him, these warriors were very particular about positioning themselves. One of the main reasons why Gu Fei's dual flame flash was so good when he turned around was because his opponents were very cooperative. As soon as he charged forward, his opponents would immediately surround him, filling up all 360 degrees around him. Wasn't this just looking for a second? But right now, the Han family young master was clearly not going to give him this opportunity. As a result, Gu Fei decided not to waste his mana, and didn't continue to charge forward. Instead, he hurriedly dodged to the left. Just now, he had eaten fruits to replenish his mana and bread to replenish his HP. After passing through the ice tornado and seeing the AoE attack, Gu Fei immediately dodged. His reaction speed was even faster than when he was stabbed by the minions, so he didn't lose much HP. Archers continued to harass him. Assassins go into stealth and approach from different directions to distract him. Report the distance between you and him. Pay attention to the levels. Spread out the formation and surround him. Once you're done, attack with him as the center. Don't worry about hurting your own people. The Han family young master continued to arrange. Gu Fei immediately saw that the other side had the intention to spread out the encirclement. He also paid attention to the Han family young master side. The 4 minions had been hit by the mage's ice tornado, and their speed had greatly decreased. The Han family young master commanded his people to eliminate Gu Fei, while also arranging for the rest of his people to attack the 4 minions. It couldn't be helped. Singing to Wine had plenty of people here. At this time, the sword demon was like a kite. He ran in front while a bunch of people chased him from behind. Those who were still chasing after him were not weak in terms of speed, and the sword ghoul had no chance to shake them off. The 4 minions had a system-style fighting style. They dealt 1,000 damage to the enemy and 800 damage to themselves. They didn't really defend against the players' attacks. Especially now that Gu Fei had given them the order to attack the Han family's young master. This bunch of fellows actually stubbornly insisted on charging towards the Han family's young master. At this time, after being hit by the ice tornado, their movement was slowed down. They still struggled to move forward. There was also a lurker player who insidiously laid a trap. After a minion stepped on it, his movement was restricted. However, he still struggled toward the Han family young master. The Han family young master, this insidious guy, completely saw through the 4 minions' stubbornness. He used himself as bait and constantly led them into the players' attacks. With this, Gu Fei realized how stupid his previous simple order to target the Han family young master was. The 4 minions probably couldn't hold on for long. Seeing this, they still didn't give up and continued to desperately chase the Han family young master. This stiff action actually made Gu Fei feel an inexplicable sadness in his heart. This is persistence. I understand it the most. At this moment, the minion that was trapped in the trap was finally killed by the players. Before he fell, he still pointed his sword in the direction of the Han family young master. What was even more tragic was that after the minion fell, the white light did not disappear like the players. The body fell on the desolate wilderness. The players stepped over it, and some of them even squatted down to loot the body. Gu Fei was furious. He suddenly ignored the enemies around him, and charged toward the Han family young master's group like a minion. Gu Fei ignored the harassing archers and the lurkers that tried to distract him. It was as if he had gathered his aggro. He saw the lurker sneaking to the front to lay another trap. This was the route that the Han family young master took, and the path that the minions had to pass. Fight, fight, fight freely! Gu Fei roared at the minions. Then he swung the night streamer. Lightning spell descend. A bolt of lightning struck the lurker. However, the lurker's body was surprisingly sturdy, and he did not die after taking the hit. Gu Fei was furious. He took out a white dagger, and threw it like a throwing knife. The knife pierced through the head of the lurker. He's not dead yet. The Han family young master had already healed him with a recovery spell. He was looking at Gu Fei with disdain. Gu Fei did not have the time to care about him. He rushed toward the 3 minions and roared. He flashed to the side of the 3 minions, killing a few players on the spot. Recover! Gu Fei shouted at the 3 minions while attacking the players around him. He was relieved when he saw the 3 minions taking out bandages. It was indeed a way to recover their health. The Han family young master smiled in disdain again. He did not even send the order in the channel. He waved his hand and said casually, "Blow them up together." The mages lined up in a line, waved their staffs and started chanting spells. Gu Fei and the 4 minions did not have perfect health. The The mages of singing and wine would not be so careless when using spells. The AoE spell would cover a large area. Gu Fei had already seen it in the tournament. Even if he could dodge it, the 3 minions would be in trouble. Gu Fei was feeling regretful when he saw the sword demon driving the train to the side. He raised the 2 daggers in his hands and used Misty Ambush. Chapter 671. Fog Ambush wasn't an AoE skill, but when the target's position was too cooperative, it became an AoE skill. At this time, the mages were very cooperative. They lined up in a line and waved their staffs at Gu Fei and the 3 soldiers, trying to release spells while enjoying the death of Gu Fei and the 3 soldiers. As a result, it gave Sword Demon a chance to use Fog Ambush as an AoE skill. Sword Demon's figure suddenly disappeared. And when he reappeared, the first mage standing in a line had disappeared. Fog Ambush was a skill with a strong impact. For the current players, it was a skill that could skip levels. Moreover, Sword Demon was a top-notch assassin with high-end equipment. The small bodies of the mages were like thin paper at this time. The Black Sword Demon was like a bamboo stick, and the mages were the pitiful candied haws that were pierced by one stick. White lights bloomed one after another, one after another. The power of the Misty Ambush gradually decreased as the mages were insta-killed one after the other. In the end, it didn't have the power to instantly kill them, but the mages were already scared out of their wits. How could they still care about casting spells? They all fled in all directions. Gu Fei's spirits rose as he got a chance to catch his breath. But seeing that there were still a lot of people in the drinking and singing group, with a strong leader like the young master of the Han family, they would not be able to enjoy the glory today. He immediately shouted to the 3 soldiers, "Retreat!" The soldiers could understand this order, so they got up and ran. With the speed of the soldiers, ordinary players really couldn't catch up. "Don't panic, stabilize the formation," Han family young master said angrily. He didn't train them personally, so it wasn't easy to command them. There would always be unexpected problems. Sword Demon's Fog Ambush was fierce, but there were 20 to 30 people here. His slash couldn't have insta-killed all of them, right? However, these guys were shocked by the candied haws and were in a mess. "Archers, archers, harass!" Han family young master hurriedly called for intercept. The biggest advantage of archers was their range, unlike warriors and thieves who had to be summoned to their sides to fight. When the archers heard the order, they immediately raised their hands and fired. Han family young master was so angry that he spat out blood. "Fuck, why are you shooting those 3? Those 3 are NPCs, shoot those 2. When the archers saw the 3 little soldiers running at the front, they all shot their arrows at them. However, the NPCs were masters of death. If the arrows came, then so be it. They would still run. It was possible to kill them, but they could forget about harassing them. Who would care about them? Ice tornado, yelled the Han family young master. The strongest team in this drinking and singing duo was still their magician team. However, the soldier had already run a distance away. Even if they used Ice Whirlwind, they would not be able to catch up. Everyone could only turn their attention to the much slower Gu Fei and Sword Demon. "I'll fight it out with you." Gu Fei suddenly roared and jumped back to attack. This stunned the Han family young master. Although he had always looked down on Gu Fei for being a martial artist, he knew that this guy was not a brainless hot-blooded and impulsive type. However, his current actions were too irrational. It was just an NPC soldier. If he died, so be it. What was the big deal? Could it be that he had spent a lot of gold coins to buy it? The Han family young master was puzzled, but he did not dare to be negligent. He hurriedly ordered the players to surround the 2 of them. In this chaotic battle, Gu Fei had not displayed his strength. On the other hand, the Sword Demon had captured the king and killed the candied haws. This made the drinking and singing players very afraid. They actually avoided him and went to bully Gu Fei. The Sword Demon was excited. Since fighting side by side with Gu Fei, when had such a scene ever happened? Most enemies would hide from Qianli. Once he got drunk, these all-powerful experts would eat melons in front of them. Today they had finally made a comeback. At this time, the drinking and singing players could be considered to have become a group. The team of close to 100 people began to display the power of a group. Although Gu Fei and the sword demon were experts, they could not handle so many people. After clashing left and right for a while, the encirclement became tighter and tighter. No more mana? When they brushed past each other, the sword demon asked Gu Fei. At this time, Gu Fei was playing with his sword in the air. He did not use the powerful dual flame flash several times. I still have some left. I'm waiting for an opportunity, Gu Fei said. What opportunity? The sword demon asked. Can you still kill your way out? Gu Fei asked. The sword demon laughed. I'm waiting for the cooldown. Can you hold on? If it was before, it would be difficult. But now I think it's about the same. The sword demon said. This period of devil training was not a waste of time. Plus, he didn't need to rest in the game. The sword demon played like crazy. He spent an average of 16 hours a day on this. He only used 8 hours for other eating, drinking and sleeping. Alright, see you in the city, Gu Fei said. The sword demon naturally did not doubt Gu Fei's strength. He felt that it wouldn't be a problem for him to kill his way out of this encirclement. If it wasn't for the Han family young master's command, he would have already left. But under this guy's command, the encirclement was always full. There was a perfect system of different professions in every direction. There was not a single weak point. The sword demon looked around. He could see that the Han family young master's formation was almost complete. This guy was pursuing a one-hit kill this time. He was determined not to give the two of them a chance to escape. The sword demon estimated that the cooldown time of his misty ambush should be within this guy's expectations. This guy should be able to launch the final encirclement before he used this skill. However, the sword demon was also a little prepared. At this time, he had already held a small scroll in his hand. Skill scroll. Limit removal. This scroll was inadvertently obtained by the sword demon during these days of hard practice. The effect of this scroll was very powerful. It could remove all the restrictions of any skill. This restriction included requirements, cooldown time, etc. It meant that the skill specified in the scroll, when released next time, did not need to wait for the cooldown time, did not need to chant or release time, and did not need to consume any mana, energy, or anger. The value of this was not low. The only regret was that it was only a one-time use scroll. Many people liked to save this kind of thing for a critical moment. But the more they had this thought, the easier it was to not use it. Because at a critical moment, they would always hesitate. Is it critical now? Moreover, many people were unlucky because they did not use it. In turn, they would comfort themselves. Hey, I died, but this one-time use treasure is finally useless. It can still be used at the next critical moment. An expert like the sword demon who had seen great storms would never hesitate to use a one-time use item when it could be used. And now he was ready to use this limit removal. In fact, with this scroll, his misty ambush could be said to have no cooldown. He could have broken out of the encirclement a long time ago. However, he also had this thought of using it at a critical moment. It was just that he would firmly execute it, unlike many people who would have those superfluous thoughts. Seeing that the Han family young master's layout was completed, and he was about to launch an all-out attack, the sword demon called out to Gu Fei, "Let's go!" And slow down. The two of them greeted each other as if they had just finished a meal. The sword demon threw the scroll, limit removal, and designated misty ambush. The skill was instantly released unconditionally. The sword demon was not careless either. He lifted his dagger and a black shadow flashed out. He was too lazy to use the little bit of stealth in the middle, and directly killed his way out. There were only about 100 people here. There weren't many layers of encirclement. The sword demon had long seen these people, so he had been playing with them for so long. At this time, once the skill was used, there was another white light. The sword demon's cross-level skill, high-end equipment, and perfect points added. The explosive attack power was above Gu Fei's magic damage. Gu Fei couldn't insta-kill him now, but in front of the sword demon he still couldn't escape. Ah! There were screams all the way, but only half of the people had been teleported away. The sword demon pierced through the encirclement and left without looking back. Many people looked at the Han family young master with great sadness. Didn't you say that his skill was on cooldown? The Han family young master was also at a loss. He did take the cooldown of the sword demon's skill into consideration, but no matter how much he calculated, he couldn't have calculated that the sword demon had recently obtained such a thing. The sword demon was not Yutian Shenming, or unscathed in battle. He definitely had to show off what he got, so no one knew that he had such a skill scroll on him. The sword demon rushed out for a while and looked back. No one was chasing him. He had used the fog ambush and then sprinted away. It was impossible to catch up even if he wanted to. The Han family young master would not expose a flaw in his formation just to chase him. The first thing he did was to immediately arrange for people to fill in the gap left by the sword demon after he broke through. To prevent anything strange from happening to Gu Fei, he quickly launched an encirclement. The Han family young master also calculated Gu Fei's mana very clearly. After disarming the trap, he used double flame flash twice, teleportation once, and lightning once. With such consumption, he should still have a big move left, but this guy didn't use it. It seemed that he was preparing to use it when he broke out of the encirclement. But there was another problem. This guy rushed back on his own accord, and it didn't look like he was going to break out of the encirclement. What was he planning? This formation, there are no flaws at all. The Han family young master praised his own formation. But in view of the unexpected situation that happened to the sword demon just now, he was not sure whether Gu Fei would also have some tricks up his sleeve. Encircling Gu Fei in the center of the encirclement, everyone distanced themselves, and then the mages would bombard him. Such a scene was, of course, perfect, but would Gu Fei give him such a chance? He stuck close to them like sticky candy, always drilling into the densest part of their group. One of the mages in singing wine was a little impatient. He shouted in the channel, "Try to hold him back. Our mages will directly bombard him. Anyway, he won't lose levels if he dies. You guys have to work hard to run." The Han family young master had not even said to use this move of sacrificing one's own people, but someone was already ready to use it. A few melee players were also very conscious, and decided to sacrifice themselves to show Qianli what they were capable of. Seeing that the mages were waving their staffs and about to cast their spells, the Han family young master's mind suddenly lit up. He hurriedly stopped them. "Stop, don't cast your spells." Some people stopped, while others had already cast their spells. It was too late to stop them. At this moment, Gu Fei suddenly swung his sword, and the few players who thought that they had already entangled with him were immediately left behind by him. Gu Fei had already rushed to the other side to stir up trouble, but the spells would not chase after Gu Fei. They landed on the spot, and hit the few comrades who had volunteered to sacrifice themselves. Fortunately, most of the people heard the Han family young master's words and stopped attacking. A few of them took a few hits and did not die. The Han family young master saw that this was good. It saved him a lot of trouble, so he simply said in the channel, "See? This is his plot." In the end, there were still people who did not understand and asked, "What plot?" He guessed that we would use this method to deal with him. He pretended to be entangled and lured us to cast our spells. Then he escaped and used the spells to blow up our own people. The Han family young master said. The players who treated alcohol as brothers recalled the scene and all sighed. Too despicable. That was what the Han family young master said to the guild members, but he had another thought in his heart. Gu Fei's guess was actually the method that the Han family young master would use. And Gu Fei had always despised this method. He wanted to use this opportunity to make him suffer the consequences of his own actions. This guy was too despicable. The Han family young master's final thought was the same as the others in the guild. Since he had already seen through it, he naturally would not let Gu Fei's plot succeed. The Han family young master did not plan on sacrificing his own people in the first place. Even sacrificing his own people was a method that was used in an urgent situation. Now that the situation was completely under control, there was no need to do so. Shrink the inner circle and surround him. The Han family young master ordered. This was his strategy to deal with Gu Fei. He had clearly surrounded Gu Fei in 2 circles. This was to prevent Gu Fei from using teleportation. Gu Fei used teleportation to escape from the encirclement. However, he could only move half of the encirclement. The outer circle was still there, and the inner circle was still there. Before Gu Fei could escape, he was already surrounded again. Without mana, Gu Fei's damage was limited, and he could only exhaust himself to death. Therefore, if Gu Fei wanted to use teleportation to escape, it would save him a lot of trouble. On the other hand, if he were to use dual flaming flash to fight to the death, he would be able to kill a few more of Singing Wine's players, but he couldn't run. The young master of the Han clan saw through Gu Fei's thoughts and relaxed. He knew that Gu Fei wouldn't cause any more trouble and immediately gave the order to attack together. Gu Fei moved again, and saw that the players had surrounded him. They did not give him any chance to escape. He smiled and lowered the Night Streamer sword. No one paid any attention to his actions. Everyone had been holding back their energy for a long time, and were fighting to be the first to attack him. If not for the fact that the weapons in their hands were very valuable, many of them would have already thrown them at Gu Fei's face. Gu Fei glanced at the group of people who had pounced on him. He chuckled and said to them, "Fire." While everyone was still in a daze, they were already brandishing their weapons at Gu Fei. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet heated up. In an instant, the entire inner circle was engulfed in flames. This time, the flames didn't rise and fall. Instead, a large white flower bloomed in the center of the circle, with Gu Fei right in the middle of it. He opened his mouth to laugh, but before he could do so, he disappeared along with a bunch of other players in the white light. A deathly silence ensued. Everyone's eyes were wide open as they watched the lively crowd disappear just like that. Only a few thick-skinned defensive warriors were left. They held their shields in their hands as they stood there in a daze, looking at the flames beneath their feet that were dancing around them. Everyone looked at each other, then suddenly turned to stare at their commander, the young master of the Han family. The Han family's young master's face was also very ugly. The moment everyone died, he immediately realized that he had been tricked. He had been tricked, a big one at that. He wanted to set up a perfect encirclement and exhaust Gu Fei to death. However, he didn't know that during the encirclement, Gu Fei was the one who was exhausting them. Originally, they weren't afraid of exhausting them because they had a cleric. However, in such a chaotic situation, the clerics were very limited. The parallel world wasn't like normal online games, where there was a row of heads and the player could go and farm skills as soon as they saw that the health bar was low. The requirements for the clerics in the parallel world were very strict. A lot of things had to be observed and judged by the players themselves. Fortunately, the system also gave them some subsidies. Just like how the archers received subsidies for their shooting, the clerics would receive a lot of feedback from the system that they needed to be healed. Even so, the clerics still had to observe who was injured. During the healing process, they had to be able to see the target of their healing. Therefore, in the situation just now, the clerics were limited, especially when Gu Fei led them to run. Even if the clerics were in a reasonable position at the beginning, it would still be a mess if they ran and didn't run. Gu Fei took advantage of this and ran around, doing as much damage as he could to one player after another, lowering their health bar. Since his health hadn't reached the warning line, the players didn't care too much about it. In the end, Gu Fei brought him to the center and used 1,000 layers flames. If it wasn't for this, Gu Fei wouldn't have been able to kill them so cleanly with an area of effect spell. However, at this moment, apart from a few heavy-armored warriors with high HP, no one was left alive. This spell killed at least 30 people. Seeing everyone's gazes directed at him, the Han family young master smiled disdainfully. He sniffed and said, "He died quickly." In the city, Gu Fei was resurrected in the Mage Academy. He was in a good mood. If he could send a message to the Han family's young master right now, that would be a great thing. Unfortunately, nothing was perfect. Gu Fei sent a message to the Sword Demon. "You're not back yet? I'm already here. You're shameless." The Sword Demon broke free and watched from afar as Gu Fei prepared to escape. In the end, he also saw the scene of Gu Fei setting himself on fire. "Haha, that guy likes to drag people down with him, so I can only satisfy him." Gu Fei said, "But what about your mission? I think it's too difficult for us to complete the mission from Singing to Wine with our little strength." The Sword Demon said, That's right. It seems like Singing to Wine takes this mission very seriously. There should be more than 100 people, right? More or less. Let's think of another way. Where are the soldiers? Gu Fei finally cared about his soldiers. They entered the city by themselves. What order did you give them? The sword demon saw Gu Fei order the soldiers to retreat and muttered a few words to them. I told them to wait at the city gate. Oh, then we'll meet at the city gate, the sword demon replied. Chapter 672. Gu Fei and Sword Demon met under the city gate, but there was no sign of the three soldiers. Gu Fei looked around and still couldn't find them. Where are the soldiers? Gu Fei was puzzled. Did you say the wrong city gate? How could that be? I'm not Yutian. Sword Demon accompanied Gu Fei and walked around again, but there was no trace of them. He recalled. When I came back, I didn't see the three of them on the road. Where did they go? Gu Fei scratched his head and opened the mission panel to see if there was any hint. As a result, he was stunned. Ah, my mission failed. Failed. Sword Demon suddenly realized. No wonder the soldiers are gone. Mission failure was also a form of mission ending. Of course, the soldiers couldn't always follow Gu Fei. How did it fail? Can't die? Gu Fei said. Maybe look at the mission description. Sword Demon said that under normal circumstances, the mission would not fail because of the player's death. It would be stated in the mission description. It didn't say. Gu Fei looked at the description in the mission panel. Is it a special setting for the mission during the city war? Sword Demon said. That's possible. Gu Fei could only agree with this guess. In the battle just now, besides death, Gu Fei couldn't find any reason to fail the mission. Go back to the place where you received the mission, and see if you can still receive it. Sword Demon said. Well, I'll go take a look. Gu Fei responded and went to Cloud City's council hall. The council hall was still the same. This time, Gu Fei entered the guard with familiarity. At a glance, he saw the three soldiers who had fought side by side with him. At this time, they returned to their original position without a trace. Gu Fei called out to them, but the three didn't respond. It seemed that with the end of the mission, the three soldiers had returned to a state where they had nothing to do with Gu Fei. Gu Fei carefully searched through the small group of soldiers. He could not find the soldier who had been sacrificed. Perhaps the system had replaced him with a new soldier with the same appearance. In the end, these soldiers were just a pile of data. When the captain of the Cloud Guard saw Gu Fei this time, he didn't have the same enthusiasm as before. Instead, he looked very serious. Gu Fei went up to talk, but the NPC pulled a long face and scolded him. This intelligent NPC actually used Gu Fei's mission failure as an excuse. This was something Gu Fei didn't expect. Gu Fei could only patiently wait for him to finish scolding. This NPC didn't mind Gu Fei's attitude at all. After completing the scolding procedure, he began to follow up. He gave Gu Fei a choice. Do this mission again or accept a new mission. Gu Fei didn't hesitate and chose to do it again. As a result, the system announced that doing it again wouldn't be so easy. This time, the difficulty would be increased. Gu Fei was puzzled. This mission was a confrontation between players. The system couldn't say whether it was difficult or not. Did the system care whether Song and Wine sent an expert or a rookie to defend? As a result, when the guard team leader gave the order, Gu Fei understood. So it was waiting for him here. In the previous mission, Gu Fei was given 4 soldiers as helpers, but this time, he was given 3. With one less helper, his strength was naturally weaker, and the difficulty was increased from a subjective point of view. However, Gu Fei did not care about the difficulty increase at all. He didn't think that the mission would fail if he died. He was originally prepared to bring 3 soldiers and come back again. Now that the mission had failed, he came back to reclaim it. To Gu Fei, giving 3 soldiers was equivalent to running errands and wasting a little time. In his heart, he already thought that he was missing a soldier. And the soldiers sent every time were obviously random. This group of soldiers were all dressed the same except for their faces. Their skills and strength were definitely about the same. Gu Fei brought the 3 he was already familiar with and asked the captain. In the end, the captain ignored him. It seemed that there was no such setting. Gu Fei could only lead his 3 new comrades out. The mission has been received again, but this time it's only given to 3 soldiers. Look at his design. If he fails again, he may give 2 next time. Gu Fei told the sword demon about the process. After listening, the sword demon said, "Since you can take other missions, why don't you change to another one? This mission, our strength is a bit weak, it's not easy to complete." Gu Fei heard that what the sword demon said was true. Just now, although Song and Wine's 30 people were killed, they couldn't ignore the defense there. When Gu Fei went again, the people would definitely gather again. If it was only for the mission, it was really better to change to another one. Maybe he could get a simple one. Moreover, when Gu Fei scanned the quest description again, he discovered that the increased difficulty was not only 1 less soldier. This quest originally had a time limit. Now that he had accepted the quest again, the timer did not start anew. Instead, it extended the time that had just passed. Gu Fei looked at his watch. Even the blank time after he failed the mission had been included in the calculation. Previously, he had used up an hour. Now he only had 1 hour. If he failed this time, even if he was given a 3rd chance, from the way the time was calculated, there was no possibility of completing it. "But I have an idea," the sword demon said again. "What?" Gu Fei asked hurriedly. "If the player dies, the mission will be declared a failure. If we use this setting, as long as we kill the player who received this mission to Song and Wine, we can destroy their mission. This way, your mission will be considered a success." The sword demon said. "Makes sense." Gu Fei nodded. "But where can I find out?" Right now, not to mention all the players over there, even if they could, Song and Wine would have already released the news. Qianli Drunk and the sword demon were enemies, leading NPCs to fight against the players. This news had indeed been spread to all the guilds that Song and Wine cooperated with. Although everyone wanted to know more, the guild leader of Song and Wine only insisted that they were attacked by Qianli Drunk and the sword demon. They knew that these 2 weren't on the same side as the players who were attacking the city. Other than that, they didn't know anything else. This mission was accidentally received by a normal member of Song and Wine. They accidentally found an NPC called Gokino, who was said to be a famous civil engineer. He was one of the designers and builders of Cloud City. Through the information dug out from him, they could find a way to break through the Cloud City. Countercurrent realized that this mission would greatly affect the outcome of the final city war. There would definitely be a lot of points, so he carefully carried it out. This was because he knew very well that due to the setting of this parallel world, there were many things that directly or secretly sabotaged each other when competing in this game. No damage immunity. It was because of this setting that Countercurrent didn't dare to leak this news. Otherwise, the opponents who were competing for points would definitely think of this idea. If they couldn't snatch the mission and couldn't get any benefits, they would try to sabotage it. After defeating Gu Fei and the sword demon, Countercurrent simply handed over the command of this side to the Han family young master. The Han family young master was indeed the 2 guys' friend, but during the battle just now, he didn't go easy on them at all and gave reasonable commands. Although Song and Wine had sacrificed a lot, they didn't fail the mission after all. The Han family young master's commanding ability was outstanding, and he knew these 2 very well. Countercurrent felt that he was the most suitable candidate. Even if these 2 didn't come and they encountered harassment from other guilds, Countercurrent felt that it was safe to leave it to the Han family young master. Countercurrent didn't say much about fighting Qianli's Drunk and the sword demon. He was afraid that the other guilds would notice that they were secretly carrying out this mission. However, he could hide it from others, but he couldn't hide it from Unsworn Sword, who had long suspected that he was up to something. Since Qianli's Drunk and the sword demon were enemies, why did they choose to fight against Song and Wine? Was this really a coincidence? Unsworn Sword's guess was quite astute. He hurriedly told his guest to Reflection of Time, who had been paying attention to Song and Wine's Drunk. Reflection of Time and his men had been searching around the west gate for a long time like a blind cat looking for a dead mouse. Under his intentional search, they actually found the depression that Song and Wine's Drunk were guarding. Song and Wine's Drunk had gathered over 100 players there. Reigning over the 4 seas and Song and Wine's Drunk were all old friends. Reflection of Time looked around, and saw that there were quite a lot of experts in the other side. Especially when he saw the Han family young master drinking at the edge of the depression. This made him panic. Unsworn, I found it. Reflection of Time wasn't in a hurry to go over. At this time, he led a few people to a small forest nearby and looked around suspiciously. Oh, what's the situation? Unsworn Sword hurriedly asked. I don't know the specifics, but Song and Wine's drunk has quite a lot of experts here. Moreover, I can see traces of a battle. It's very likely where Qianli's drunk and the sword demon came. Right, the Han family young master is also here. Reflection of Time said. The Han family young master is also here? Unsworn Sword was shocked when he heard this. Qianli's drunk and the sword demon. Are they trying to set a trap for us? Reflection of Time was startled when he heard this. The news that Qianli's drunk and the sword demon were enemies was released by Against the Current, but there was no evidence at all. Every guild had asked Song and Wine about it. After all, every player had their own circle of friends, and they might know a few friends from other guilds. However, after asking, no one got any information. No, it should be said that only Reigning over the Four Seas didn't get any information. Even if the other guilds did get any information, they wouldn't share it with others, so everyone said that they didn't know. Reflection of Time pondered. Why don't you keep an eye on them? If Qianli's drunk and the sword demon come again, then this seems to be true. We'll take our time to think about it. Unsworn Sword's guild chain quest this time, although he had completed the quest, he had been cheated from the start. After careful consideration, he had suffered quite a bit along the way. In the end, it was thanks to the help of the child elite group that he had completed the quest, but at the same time he had also seen their methods. Unsworn Sword had originally thought that Reflection of Time was quite resourceful, but now he understood what it meant by there would always be a higher mountain. He was afraid. Once he had anything to do with the child elite group, he would want to be on guard from the bottom of his heart. Unsworn. It's not a big deal for us to wait, but think about it, Song and Wine is a quest. If we wait, once they complete the quest, I can see that the importance of this quest isn't low. We won't be able to find a quest that can compete with them, so we'll fall behind from the start. After that, we'll compete in killing enemies to earn points. Although our guild is strong, don't forget that mages are the strongest at Song and Wine. If we're purely farming monsters, we might not be able to compete with them. Reflection of Time said. Then what do you think we should do? Unsworn Sword said. Let's get someone else to do our dirty work. I'll just keep an eye on them, and you can leak this matter to the other guilds. Reflection of Time said. Good idea. Unsworn Sword spirit rose. Who should we leak it to? Unchung Matsu? That guy has been suspicious of Against the Current for a long time. He even told me about it before. Then we can't look for him. Reflection of Time hurriedly said. Since this guy has already realized it, he's quite smart. Who knows what he's up to in the dark? We might not be able to hide it from him. And even if he's willing to help us, he'll definitely drag us down with him. We can't look for him. Then who else can we look for? Black Index Finger? I suspect this guy is colluding with Against the Current. We can't rely on him. Xiaosang? Then who else can we look for? Speaking of Gu Xiaosang, Unsworn Sword did not even give a reason. Was there even a need for a reason? Unsworn Sword could not bear to let Gu Xiaosang be the spear, and he was even more afraid of offending Gu Xiaosang. Reflection of Time sighed. In his heart, Gu Xiaosang was a pretty good candidate, but why did it have to be a girl? And Unsworn Sword even took a liking to her? Since the big guilds had no chance, he could only look for other guilds. Reflection of Time had already thought of a candidate, and then sent a message to Unsworn Sword. Black Rose, what do you think of that guy? Oh, Unsworn Sword knew a few normal players, but he did know quite a few guild leaders. Although Black Rose was reduced to a meat pie and a laughingstock today, his guild Spear and Rose was still a level 4 guild, and he had some strength. Based on Unsworn Sword's understanding of this person, and his enthusiasm for stealing points today, he was a good candidate. Oh, he's not bad. Unsworn Sword replied after thinking for a while. There's also White and Black, I think he's not bad too, Reflection of Time said. Him? His guild is pretty good. Unsworn Sword said. That's right, And this guy just spent a lot of money to change his equipment before the currency update. Actually, he just wanted to change his color, but when the currency update came out, he was dumbfounded. Now he has nowhere to vent his anger. Unsworn Sword understood the meaning of reflected years. He meant that White and Black were currently in a stage where they had psychological problems and were more susceptible to provocation. If these two guilds worked together, they might not be able to contend against Singing to Wine, but it wouldn't be difficult to destroy Singing to Wine, which was just one of their missions. Even if there was a trap, the Four Seas Invincible Alliance could just watch quietly and reap the benefits. Chapter 673. Let's do that. Keep watching, I'll contact them. After Unsworn Sword made his decision, he immediately started looking for Black Rose and White and Black. Unsworn Sword recognized both of them, but they were not friends, so he did not add them to the list. At this time, all the guild leaders were gathered in this area. Unsworn Sword walked around aimlessly for 2 rounds and finally saw Black Rose in a corner. This guy's face was gloomy, but the few guys around him who were obviously his good friends were laughing heartily. It was obvious that they were making fun of his play today. Unsworn Sword pretended to pass by, and when those guys burst into laughter again, he looked back in surprise and smiled at them. What are you so happy about? It's guild leader Unsworn. Everyone laughed. There were quite a lot of people who knew Unsworn Sword. Black Rose was obviously very unwilling to continue being ridiculed here, and desperately wanted to change the topic. When she saw Unsworn Sword, she took the initiative to approach him. Guild leader Unsworn, when do we start attacking this city? This was the time when medium-sized guilds like them were the most lonely. The big guilds were in charge of everyone's activities, and the small guilds were in charge of communicating with Black Rose. As a result, medium-sized guilds like them who were stuck in the middle felt a little idle. Unsworn Sword saw that Black Rose took the bait, and was very happy. He chuckled and joined their chat circle in an extremely friendly manner. A few minutes later, Black Rose swept away the disappointment of being smashed into a meat patty by the boulder, and waved his hand to take out his spear. He pointed his bulging arm towards the sky. Brothers, there's something to do. Be careful. The Sword of No Oath reminded him kindly from the side. He was overjoyed. The people chosen by reflected years were very suitable. Just a few words were enough to incite them. This Black Rose was probably thinking of that embarrassing scene when he was lonely, and was eager to find something to distract himself and everyone's attention. Call people, let's go. Black Rose led a few of his brothers, gathered the guild's people, and set off. Unsworn Sword did not stay idle. He turned around to find White and Black. White and Black were relatively easy to find because this person's attire was really very distinct. Moreover, White and Black were different from Black Rose. His level 5 guild was considered to be quite strong, and in front of the level 6 guild leader, Unsworn Sword, he could still speak with his back straight. Unsworn Sword had been the guild leader for a long time, so he had some skill in negotiating. His conversation with White and Black was mainly about how they did not know where to get points in this city war. Then he pretended to casually try to figure out that Singing to Wine seemed to have found some important mission, and had a conflict with Qianli and Drunken Sword Demon. Then he heard from a friend that Singing to Wine had gathered more than 100 experts somewhere at the West Gate, and he did not know what they were doing. I don't understand. Unsworn Sword ended the conversation with a blank look on his face. He then looked at White and Black, who seemed to be deep in thought. Unsworn Sword felt that it was about time, so he said goodbye to him and silently left the Black-White Alliance's encampment. He found an inconspicuous place to secretly observe their actions. In his conversation with the two guild leaders, there were 2 details that Unsworn Sword would carefully reveal. First, Against the Current had experts there, but there were only about 100 of them. Spear and Rose and Black-White Alliance were guilds with more than 500 and 700 people respectively. Unsworn Sword believed that they would be confident in dealing with more than 100 people at Against the Current. Another point was that Unsworn Sword's bait was not for the 2 guilds to sabotage Singing to Wine's mission, but to snatch it. This was because he was very clear that these two guilds would not treat Singing to Wine as a direct competitor. After all, the difference in strength was obvious. Therefore, they would not be interested in sabotaging Singing to Wine's mission. Only snatching the mission, which could directly benefit them, would be accepted by them. Unsworn Sword saw these 2 points and easily convinced the two guilds. Black Rose had already led her people away, and after a moment of silence, White and Black pulled a few of his brothers beside him and muttered for a while, then got up and quietly left the encampment. It's done. Unsworn Sword sent a message to Reflection of Years. Deploy a few of our people over as well. We don't want our people to not be around when we need them. Reflection of Years replied. Okay. Unsworn Sword nodded and immediately selected elite and reliable members from the guild to reinforce the Singing to Wine's mission at the West Gate. In Cloud City, Gu Fei and Sword Demon led 3 small soldiers and set off again. Using the same method as the last time, they passed through the battlefield where the players and the city guards were fighting. The 3 NPCs began to observe their surroundings to see if there were any places they could move in secret. The 2 of them coincidentally found a small forest not far away. It was not far from the Singing to Wine quest pit. After discussing with the Sword Ghoul, Gu Fei and the Sword Ghoul decided to sneak over there first and wait for an opportunity to strike. When we were killing them just now, did you see that NPC? Gu Fei asked. You mean that civil engineer? No. Sword Demon said. Do you think if we directly kill him, does it count as completing the mission? Gu Fei asked. In your mission description, it seems to be rescue, right? Sword Demon wiped his sweat. Oh, it's... Gu Fei looked at it again. It was clearly written rescue. But if we really have to rescue them, then the method I just came up with is... Killing the other party's quest player will only ruin their quest. It doesn't mean that my quest will be successfully completed, Gu Fei said. Rescue, with this kind of content. Does it mean that we still have to escort him back to the city? Sword Demon guessed. Gu Fei couldn't help but look back at the chaotic battlefield. He will listen to us and change his equipment, right? I don't know. Sword Demon said. As they spoke, the 2 of them made a circle and arrived at the small forest. They stepped into the forest and moved in the direction of the mission pit. Gu Fei looked at the time. There's still 34 minutes. It's very urgent. In such a short time, if we save him, will there still be time to send him back? Sword Demon was puzzled. From this, it can be seen that there shouldn't be a need for an escort, Gu Fei said. Don't underestimate the shamelessness of the system, Sword Demon said sincerely as a battle-hardened person. There's someone. Gu Fei suddenly stopped talking and sent a message to Sword Demon. At the same time, he reached out and pointed forward. At the edge of the front, a few guys were very carefully hiding behind the trees, peeking out from time to time. Who is it? Sword Demon replied. Take a closer look. Don't make a sound, Gu Fei said. Sword Demon nodded. Gu Fei turned back and ordered the 3 guards to stand by. Gu Fei really didn't trust the stupid guards with this kind of sneaky thing that couldn't make a sound. The 2 of them paid attention to their feet and quietly approached those guys without making a sound. Sword Demon leaned forward and looked at the guy's side profile. He sent a message to Gu Fei. Reflected Years, the person who roamed the world. What are they doing here? I don't know. What should we do? Kill them, Gu Fei said. Let's keep Reflected Years and ask about the situation, Sword Demon suggested. Okay, then quietly kill them one by one. Don't let him notice, Gu Fei said. That's difficult. What's difficult about it? Just act quickly. 2 for each person. Which 2 do you want? Gu Fei said. Let me see. Sword Demon was very cautious. He quietly appraised each person and chose the one he was more confident in. The ones that Reflected Years brought out to scout were naturally characters with high mobility. These characters had weak health, so it was convenient for Gu Fei and Sword Demon to assassinate them. The 2 of them had finished their assignments. These people still didn't know that the God of Death was behind them. Gu Fei waved his finger, and the 2 rushed forward. Gu Fei used teleportation, and suddenly appeared between the 2 of them. Before they could react, Gu Fei's dark streak sword swung left and right like a whip. Flames flew from left to right in front of Gu Fei, and the two were hit by the white light. On the sword demon's side, he quietly went behind one person and used staggering blow. Following that, he used fog ambush to kill another person. He rushed back and used backstab. With another slash, he used staggering blow. At this time, Gu Fei had already walked behind the only living Reflected Years and patted his shoulder. What is it? Reflected Years didn't even turn his head. What are you busy with? Gu Fei asked. Nonsense. Reflected Years said as he turned his head, but his gaze wasn't on Gu Fei. An experienced player could tell that he was paying attention to the message he had just received. The message said, "We're dead." Reflected Years came back to his senses and looked in front of him. It was Gu Fei. You. Reflected Years stammered for a while and didn't know what to say. On the other hand, Gu Fei was gentle and didn't make things difficult for him. He continued to ask, "What are you busy with?" Reflected Years calmed himself down. Seeing that Gu Fei didn't seem to have any intention of sending him to heaven, he asked, "What are you busy with?" "Quest," Gu Fei said. "What quest?" Reflected Years asked. "How can I tell you?" Gu Fei said. Sword Demon looked out from Reflected Years' point of view and realized something. "Are you monitoring the people who are drinking and singing?" Looking out from Reflected Years' point of view, he had a panoramic view of the quest pit area. Sword Demon was also a guild leader. Even if he didn't care about it, it didn't mean he didn't understand the open and secret struggles between guilds. He instantly knew that Reflected Years didn't have good intentions. In a sense, his goal was the same as Gu Fei and Sword Demon. "This place is really a good place to secretly observe this place," Gu Fei said. "Yeah." Time's reflection forced a smile. "Isn't everyone here?" Gu Fei nodded. "You like this place? We also like this place. Where's the Han family young master? Didn't that guy notice that there's actually such a place next to this place?" "Not good." Sword Demon saw that a mage suddenly appeared in the quest pit and raised his staff. Chapter 674. Gu Fei yelled and retreated. Time reflected wasn't much slower than the two of them. He was a full agility archer, so if he didn't have to worry about his equipment, his movement speed was even higher than Gu Fei and Sword Ghoul's. Moreover, he was quite adept at dodging mages' attacks. With a flick of his leg, he dodged and left Gu Fei in the dust. The mages' AoE spells exploded behind the three of them like bombs, chasing after them. A large number of mages jumped out of the quest pit and chased after them while casting spells into the forest, regardless of where their targets were. The Han family young master regretted that the forest was still a bit far from the pit. If it was any closer, he would have directly used a magic circle to kill these guys on the spot. How could this be? An ambush? But we've been lying here for a long time. Why did they only make a move now? The reflection of time didn't understand. Gu Fei thought for a moment and said, "Maybe they were waiting for us." The reflection of time ran while tears streamed down his face. Why didn't they make a move? Because they didn't see him as an opponent at all. They were waiting for these two experts. "There's a thief in the forest," said Sword Demon. The reflection of time looked at Gu Fei and said, "Don't you know anti-stealth? Why didn't you notice?" "That's within a certain range," said Gu Fei. The young master of the Han family knew Gu Fei too well. He more or less knew the range of Gu Fei's anti-stealth ability. He must have instructed the stealth thief on how to avoid detection. If that's the case, they've already noticed us as soon as we came over. The reflection of time muttered, "Of course. What are you guys trying to do?" asked Gu Fei. "Not good." The reflection of time shouted. He ignored Gu Fei and Sword Demon, and hurriedly sent a message to Unsworn Sword. Since the enemy already knew that Unhindered was lying in ambush nearby, it wouldn't be difficult for them to guess their ill intentions. They were probably prepared for any kind of attack, and no matter what they did, they would be walking right into the tiger's den. Unsworn Sword received the message, but he could only sigh helplessly. It's too late. Those two forces have already gone over. Our people told them not to move for now. Years of Reflection said. "Of course. How are you?" "Run for your life." Just as Reflection Time finished speaking, Gu Fei suddenly pressed down on his head. A sniper bullet grazed past his scalp. Still in shock, Reflection Time hurriedly said to Gu Fei, "Thank you." Gu Fei was at a loss. This is a conditioned reflex. Why would I save you? Reflection Time was very depressed, but he also realized that Qianli Drunk and Sword Demon were very likely to be a sharp weapon against drunken singing. He immediately sorted out his emotions and said, "Don't say that. Actually, we're on the same side now." However, Gu Fei wasn't listening to him. After looking around, he said to Sword Demon, "Is the forest surrounded?" "It wasn't when we came in. Even if they wanted to surround us, they wouldn't be so fast. They can't stop us if it's just archers and thieves, but we have to be fast." Sword Demon said, "Quick, quick, quick. Soldiers, come here." As they continued to run, Gu Fei called out to the 3 soldiers who were still in a daze in the forest. The soldiers rushed over. Reflection of Time was stunned. Although Gu Fei and Sword Demon didn't pay attention to him, he still followed closely behind them. "Which way?" Gu Fei asked. "This way. There doesn't seem to be a good place to hide," Sword Demon said. "Follow me, I know one." Reflection of Time finally got a chance to let the 2 hear his voice. As expected, the 2 looked at him and said in unison, "Lead the way." Reflection of Time rushed at the front, with Gu Fei and Sword Demon on the left and right. There were still sorcerers bombarding them from behind, but as the 3 ran, the distance between them was getting farther and farther. Although the pursuing swords and arrows were endless, it wasn't too difficult to escape as long as there weren't too many obstacles in front of them. As soon as they rushed out of the small forest, Gu Fei suddenly had an idea. "Got it. Come here." After saying that, he led the soldiers and Sword Demon to the battlefield tens of meters away. Reflection of Time led them in another direction. He was still talking when he suddenly turned around and found that the group of people weren't following him. They were running in another direction. "Hey, I'm here!" Reflection of Time shouted. How could they be wrong? What were these fellows' eyes doing? In the end, Gu Fei and Sword Demon looked back at him, ignored him, and continued to run. Reflection of Time was going crazy, but he really wanted to borrow the strength of these 2 guys, so he stubbornly chased after them again. "Two big bosses, where are you going?" The reflected youth waved his hands and shouted as he chased after them. In the end, the 2 of them, along with 3 soldiers, directly entered the battlefield, which was filled with the sounds of killing. Reflection of Time was startled and reacted. If these 2 people were from the system, the guards on the battlefield naturally wouldn't attack them, and the players wouldn't attack them if they thought they were players. This battlefield was really the best place to protect them. But what about himself? If he encountered a guard chasing him, who would save him? Reflection of Time hesitated for a moment, but finally gritted his teeth, stamped his feet, and rushed in. On this side of the battlefield, the players were fighting intimately. Reflection of Time hid from the guards while searching for the whereabouts of Gu Fei and Sword Demon. Along the way, an old player shouted at him, "Brother, retreat! Brother, 3 o'clock! Brother, finish him off!" Reflection of Time didn't dare say that he wasn't here to fight, so he had to cooperate from time to time. In such a difficult situation, this guy relied on his good observation skills and tried to go to places where there was no danger. He actually didn't die and even helped him find Gu Fei and Sword Demon. Shameless. Reflection of Time couldn't help but curse in his heart. On this side, Gu Fei and Sword Demon were also fighting happily with 3 guards, but Reflection of Time recognized these 3 guards. They were the 3 soldiers that Gu Fei had just led, and they completely obeyed his orders. These 2 guys were acting here. Reflection of Time raised his head and looked out of the circle. The people from drinking and singing had also chased them all the way, but in the face of this chaotic battlefield, they finally stopped, casually looked around and retreated. "Brother, what are you spacing out for?" At this moment, a guy who was in the middle of a battle slipped past Reflection of Time. Seeing that he was looking around, he didn't stop and waved the sword in his hand to deal with the enemy, while bumping Reflection of Time with his butt. Reflection of Time raised his bow to support him, but saw this guy fall to the ground with a sword and die on the spot. Reflection of Time didn't dare to provoke the guards anymore. Only now did he know that Gu Fei and the others were acting for the players around him. Otherwise, if he just stood there like a fool, there would always be enthusiastic players coming to greet him. "I'm coming." Reflection of Time roared. He didn't dare to challenge the powerful guards. This guy also went to Gu Fei and Sword Demon's side, wanting to cooperate with them in a 3v3. He found a guard and called out to him. But when Gu Fei gave the fake order, he didn't include him. Plus, he was from an opposing faction, so how could Gu Fei's soldiers be polite to him? Seeing someone attack, he retaliated. How could Reflection of Time have the ability to fight in close combat? He was chased and cut by the soldiers. "Qianli, brother Qianli, hurry and save me." Reflection of Time hugged his head and ran like a rat, shouting anxiously. Gu Fei laughed for a while, then told the guards to stop. Reflection of Time let out a long sigh and didn't dare to move. He could only move closer to the two of them. "You two, what are your plans? Why don't you tell me what your plans are first?" Gu Fei said. I just said in a way, we're on the same side. I don't need to know what your goals are, but as long as we can disrupt the quest for singing for wine, I think I can make things convenient for you too," Reflection of Time said. Sword Demon frowned. Clearly, he despised Reflection of Time's actions of hindering the other guilds during this city war. Gu Fei didn't show any emotions and just asked, "Oh, what kind of convenience?" Right now, Spear and Rose as well as the Black and White Life and Death Alliance. These two guilds are planning on fighting Singing for Wine here. Once this chaos breaks out, won't you two have an opportunity to take advantage of? Reflection of Time said. You're talking about the Black and White Life and Death Alliance? Gu Fei asked. Yes, Brother Qianli also knows of this guild. Reflection of Time said. Of course I know. The guild leader is White and Black, the one who is very interested in clothing. Gu Fei said as he looked at Sword Demon. Sword Demon didn't have any disdain on his face at this time. It was obvious that he was quite tempted, but unfortunately, this was the opposite of Reflection of Time's wishes. He wanted to go against White and Black, who Reflection of Time had placed his hopes on. Ahem, then what do you think we should do? Gu Fei asked. Right, since Singing for Wine already knew that I was there, then they might be prepared for these two guilds' actions. But no matter what, with so many players fighting, it will be a chaotic battle. Won't the two of you be able to complete your quest in this chaos? Reflection of Time said. Yes, it's possible. Gu Fei nodded. And we've just run out, so they definitely won't expect us to turn around and attack again. Reflection of Time said. That's hard to say. Gu Fei and Sword Demon both thought of someone. Hee, if we don't try, how will we know? Reflection of Time said. Okay, then let's try. Gu Fei nodded. Where will those two guilds come from? I'm not too sure. Why do you ask? Since we know that the enemy is prepared, why do we need to go in? Let's intercept them first, and then we can plan it out. Gu Fei said. If that's the case. But these two guilds might not be in the same place. Reflection of Time said. If we intercept both guilds, we might not be able to make it in time. Let's find the stronger guild. Which one of them is stronger? Black and White Life and Death Alliance. Reflection of Time said. Okay, then it's this one. Quickly contact them and find out where they are. Gu Fei said. I'll try. Reflection of Time still had friends in the Black and White Life and Death Alliance. He sent a message, but the other side hesitated and refused to say. Reflection of Time became anxious and shouted. Who doesn't know that you guys want to do the Wine for Songs quest? I want to help you guys right now. I just happened to bring people here for a quest. I think Wine for Songs has already made arrangements. I'm reminding you guys to be careful. Don't be ungrateful. Arrangements? How could this be? They know we're coming? I think so. I happen to have two friends here. I'll introduce them to you guys. You guys can work together. Maybe things will turn for the better. Friends. Two people. What's the use of that? The other side was somewhat disdainful. What do you know? Do you know who these two people are? Reflection of Time said contemptuously. He found that this kind of feeling was very good. It turned out that standing next to an expert would make his image very tall. His friend's reaction wasn't slow. He immediately realized, it can't be Qianli drunk and sword demon, right? It's those two. Think about it. These two people messed up wine for songs once before. You still say they don't have any power? But aren't they from the system? Aren't people from the system also human? Since everyone has the same goal, why can't we talk about cooperation? Okay. I'll tell the president. We're at XXX. Come over quickly. Okay. Reflection of time let out a long breath. They're at XXX. They're telling us to go over quickly. Go. Hurry up. Gu Fei looked at the time. His quest now had 20 minutes left. At the same time, he sent a message to Sword Demon. Here's your chance. Sword Demon replied, too shameless. Then are you going or not? I'll be shameless for once. Sword Demon felt a little sad. There's no other way. With your profession and camp, the quest content isn't bright. You just have to get used to it. Gu Fei said. The two of them followed Reflection of Time. When White and Black heard the news, they were so scared that they hurriedly stopped moving forward. After all, they didn't dare to have a real head-on confrontation with Singing Wine. They originally wanted to bully the other party's lack of strength. When they heard that the other party was already prepared, they didn't dare to act rashly. Have you all taken off your badges? White and Black turned around to remind everyone. This time, they didn't bring all of them. They only chose trustworthy people. At the same time, they believed that they were enough to deal with Singing Wine's team of more than 100 people. A group of people took off their badges and masked their faces. They were like a bunch of bandits. Even White and Black made a sacrifice for this. Their signature white and black attire had been changed. White and Black waited in such a place with their people. Soon, Reflection of Time led Gu Fei and Sword Demon over. White and Black hurriedly came over to greet them. Before they could say anything, Gu Fei and Sword Demon suddenly jumped out. Gu Fei used dual flame flash and Sword Demon followed up with a slash. White and Black didn't understand what was going on before they were sent away. Gu Fei and Sword Demon immediately turned around and ran. A large group of people from the Black and White Life and Death Alliance finally reacted and chased after them with a roar. Reflection of Time stood in the crowd and looked at the sky in a daze. What the hell was going on? Chapter 675. Reflection Years had yet to recover from his shock. Half of the Black and White Life and Death Alliance chased after Gu Fei and Sword Demon, while the other half surrounded Reflection Years. Of course, they knew that this person was from Reigning the World, the #1 guild in Cloud City. However, as a gamer, there was no reason for them to not fight back. There was no punishment for dying, so Reflection Years had to worry about not himself, but the relationship between his guild and Black and White Life and Death Alliance. After this incident, Black and White Life and Death Alliance would definitely hate them. Brothers, listen to me. I was fucking tricked too. Reflection Years shouted at the top of his lungs, but he was not as fast as the other party's sword. By the time he finished speaking, he had already respawned at the revival point. Unsworn Sword, fucking Reigning the World isn't done yet. At the same time, Unsworn Sword suddenly received a message. Just like how many people knew him, he did not know many people. Many people had him in their friend list, but it did not mean that the other party was on his friend list as well. Sometimes he could not send messages, but he was happy to receive them. Unsworn Sword was still confused and could only laugh. What's wrong, brother? What are you talking about? Who the fuck is your brother? Just you wait, this isn't over. White and Black had been in a bad mood recently, and this time he was tricked again. There was no loss in death, everyone knew this. But as a young man of the new era, he could not only focus on those material things, he also had to pursue spiritually. White and Black's spirit was severely damaged, and he obviously lost his mind. He started to curse at Unsworn Sword. There was no filter for curses in the parallel world. White and Black were like a shotgun, and Unsworn Sword quickly became angry. He still did not know what was going on. Just as he was about to say a few harsh words, Reflection Year's message finally arrived. There was a cause and effect, and Reflection Years needed some time to arrange the message, right? Unsworn Sword's reaction was really fast. He immediately copied Reflection Year's message and forwarded it to White and Black. In the end, White and Black replied coldly, "Bluff, keep bluffing." Unsworn Sword had been scolded for a long time, but he was still enduring it. Even though he could only receive messages and not see the person himself, he could imagine by Jiahei's sarcastic look when he said those words. In a moment of anger, he replied angrily, "What nonsense are you talking about? Do you think I'm afraid of you? It was up to them to believe it or not. If you want to cause trouble, we'll accompany you." "All right. Just you wait." Ever since he had been killed, he had been thinking about how to take revenge. He had also thought of some devious ideas. He immediately issued orders in the guild channel. Hunt me down? What was the point of chasing after him? Those two were just tools to kill. The real mastermind behind the scenes was the 4Cs. Damn it, he deliberately tricked us into coming here. White and Black completely misunderstood the situation after connecting the dots. As the guild members listened to their guild leader's rage, they muttered in their hearts, "What's the point of tricking him here? Just to kill you for a bit?" That didn't seem to be the case. That was what everyone was thinking, but at this moment, no one made a sound. How did it go? Reflection of Years was still waiting for the outcome of the negotiation with Unsworn Sword. Unsworn Sword was furious. "What else can I do? IoT. What OT? Reflection of Years was confused. "White and Black's aggro is all on me," Unsworn Sword said. At this moment, Unsworn Sword was still using the game's terminology. Reflection of Years was about to collapse. "He doesn't believe me? Then what do we do? I'm afraid of him," Unsworn Sword said. But at this time, sigh. Reflection of Years sighed. Usually, they wouldn't be too afraid of making enemies with any guild. However, at this critical juncture of the city war, the big guilds were all thinking of ways to rope in more people to help them. Yet, 4Cs just had to provoke them. Reflection of Years couldn't say anything. He was the one who brought the trouble. At most, Unsworn Sword could only blame him for not cleaning up his mess well. What else could he say? On the other side, Gu Fei and Sword Demon had basically escaped. The two of them had outstanding speed, and they had the ability to blend into the battlefield, so it was not difficult for them to escape. In addition, White and Black's aggro had mysteriously shifted, so those who were chasing them had turned around halfway, leaving the two of them a little confused. Gu Fei had indeed used Reflection of Years, but he didn't think that there would be a gap between the two guilds. He just realized that Reflection of Years actually knew where White and Black were, so he used him as a guide. Why aren't they chasing anymore? Gu Fei saw that the pursuers had suddenly retreated and was puzzled. Sword Demon shrugged, indicating that he didn't know. "Did you complete the quest?" Gu Fei asked. Sword Demon nodded and said, "Actually, it's good to use them to attack your quest first, and then I'll complete mine. My quest doesn't have a timer." Gu Fei looked deeply at Sword Demon and sighed. People learn bad really quickly. The Sword Ghost immediately felt extremely ashamed. How could he have taken advantage of the situation to have such a despicable and shameless idea? "How much time do you have left for your quest?" Sword Demon changed the topic. 21 minutes. Gu Fei said. "What do you plan on doing?" "It's nearby anyways. I'll go take a look. If there's a chance, I'll do it. If there's no chance, I'll just die and go back to change quests," Gu Fei said. "Then let's go." "You're going to? You've already killed him. If you die again, won't you fail again?" Gu Fei said. The noob side of him was once again revealed. Sword Demon helplessly explained. "If I kill him, then it's already completed. How can I fail again?" "Oh, if that's the case, then hurry up." The 2 players and 3 soldiers went towards the singing and drinking quest as if nothing had happened. Black and White Life and Death Alliance's mission was cancelled due to this incident. Spear and Rose arrived just in time. Guild leader Black Rose wasn't stupid either. Everyone in the guild took off their badges and masks, looking like bandits. Seeing the coordinates provided by Unsworn Sword, Black Rose waved her hand and had everyone spread out. "Guild leader, there's a person there." someone reported. I know, I'm not blind, Black Rose said. At the edge of the quest pit sat a cleric, happily drinking wine. A group of bandits were right in front of him, but he acted as if nothing had happened. Let's kill him. An archer pulled his bowstring. There's no need. Charge forward and flatten them. Everyone had their own style. Black Rose loved the feeling of thousands of troops galloping across the battlefield, so every time she commanded, she would create this kind of atmosphere. This was her spiritual pursuit. Charge! Spear and Rose's players saw that the other side had already seen them, so they didn't pursue a sneak attack. They shouted loudly to boost their morale and charged forward. Their guild leader, Black Rose, rushed to the front without hesitation. This feeling of leading by example was great. However, there were a lot of people in the guild who were sullen. With this short-legged person at the front, everyone had to slow down and run. This was too depressing. The cleric continued to see nothing. When Black Rose was only a few meters away from him, he suddenly threw the wine bottle in his hand up high. Everyone couldn't help but look up. Then they saw a brilliant flash of fire above their heads. Bang! The wine bottle fell to the ground and shattered. The flames that were infused with mana also spread and burned at this moment. The players of Spear and Rose were already crying and running away. Some wanted to rush forward, some stopped and retreated, and some scattered left and right. However, there were definitely very few who could actually step out of the sea of fire. A large area of fire contrasted with the white light. This kind of scene often happened in team battles. As the guild leader, Black Rose had some outstanding abilities. Although she couldn't jump out of the sea of fire, she still stubbornly survived. However, when she looked back at her own brothers, she realized that this wave of fire ambush had killed at least half of them. Brothers, fight! At this point there was no point in retreating. Black Rose continued to encourage those who didn't die and continued to charge forward. Black Rose charged towards the cleric in front of her. Pa! Seeing that the cleric didn't even try to dodge, he suddenly stopped halfway. Black Rose looked down and saw that there was a big trap stuck in his foot. She immediately burst into tears. This is a tried and tested move. Han family young master nodded and turned around to enter the pit. He waved his hand in the air and said, "Kill him." Several players immediately rushed out from the pit. They were all melee professions and pounced towards Black Rose, who had been caught in the trap. Fortunately, Black Rose was the guild leader. During battles, many people were used to using him as the center. The people around him also rushed over to protect him. The battle between the two sides reached its climax. Spear and Rose are no match for him. Sword Ghost reported to Gu Fei after sneaking over to scout the area. There's only 7 minutes left. Even if I have unlimited mana, I won't be able to kill them all. Gu Fei sighed. I have an idea. Sword Demon said. Oh, yes, the Singing Wine Mage team has always been in groups. If you suddenly use teleportation to flash into their formation, you might not be discovered. I think the target of your mission should be there. Go in and contact them first and see what they say. Sword Demon said. I can try. Gu Fei nodded. As for how to get close to a position where he could teleport, he had already thought of it. Gu Fei masked his face. After circling around, he sneaked into the battle without anyone noticing. Masked, no guild emblem. This was the current symbol of Spear and Rose. No one noticed at all. The masked people all treated Gu Fei as a brother. As Gu Fei moved forward, there were constantly people shouting at him to provide support. Gu Fei didn't take out his signature Night Stream sword. A mage with a sword would be too conspicuous. Gu Fei waved his staff and ran around like a normal mage while casting spells. Of course, normal people would really cast spells. Gu Fei was actually just pointing with his staff and chanting. Right now the field was already filled with spells. With this posture, no one paid attention to the spells. Gu Fei paid attention to evading the attacks aimed at Singing Wine as he steadily advanced forward. Singing and Wine was mainly using the edge of the pit as a line of defense. Since the front line was already fighting, mages generally wouldn't use large area of effect spells. But Han family young master was very dark. He deliberately directed the melee players to lure the other side to gather. At this time, most of the players would suddenly retreat, and a small number would stay behind as cannon fodder. Then, the mages would bombard both the enemy and himself. Spear and Rose weren't on guard against such a dark strategy. By the time they realized it, half of their people had already been lost. At this time, how could they still attack? They were already waiting for Singing and Wine's counterattack to push them down. Under these circumstances, Gu Fei finally rushed to the edge of the pit and looked inside. Sure enough, it was as Sword Demon had said. Their mages were gathering in the pit. And Han family young master was standing at the lower edge. He didn't do anything and just paid attention to the situation on the field. He had truly become a commander, and didn't even do his job as a priest. Sword Demon had naturally calculated the distance before giving Gu Fei this idea. Gu Fei took a few glances and quickly found a good landing spot. He secretly walked to a suitable position, and suddenly started chanting. When Gu Fei reappeared, he was already standing at the end of the formation of the mages. He quickly glanced around, but no one noticed that there was an extra person in this place. This place was already at the end of the mage array. Although there were people defending behind him, they were still facing outwards and naturally wouldn't know that there was an extra person behind them. This time he wasn't seen through, so the next step was a lot easier. Gu Fei raised his staff and crouched down as he walked through the crowd of mages. No one suspected anything. The simple tent was guarded by the mages. Gu Fei had already reached the entrance and carefully looked around. Like the other mages, he raised his staff and chanted while looking at the Han family young master's direction. Finally, with a flash, Gu Fei successfully sneaked into the tent. If there were other players here, Gu Fei would have no choice but to kill them. Fortunately, no one thought that someone would be able to sneak in so deep. Inside the tent, a guy was leaning over a table and busying himself. There was no reason he couldn't be Gilkino. He was the only one in the tent. But was this person a civil engineer? No matter how Gu Fei looked at him, he looked like a miner. Hey, I'm here to save you. Gu Fei didn't waste any time, and went straight to the task. At the same time, he saw Gilgino drawing something on the table. There were pictures and numbers, but Gu Fei couldn't understand them. Gilgino, on the other hand, raised his head to look at Gu Fei and smiled bitterly. Too late. How is it too late? There are still 3 minutes. Gu Fei looked at the quest interface. There were still 3 minutes before the quest ended. Can you escort me back in 3 minutes? Gilkino asked. Do you really have to escort me back to the city? Gu Fei asked. At the very least, we have to leave this place and get away from the battlefield, Gilkino said. Can you use a teleportation scroll? Gu Fei asked. Gilkino didn't say anything. If an NPC refused to answer a question, it usually meant that the player's thinking was too jumpy and asked a question that couldn't be thought of. Otherwise, there would always be a way for the NPC to respond. Give it a try. Gu Fei didn't feel the pinch and took out a scroll to give it a try. But then he thought about it. If Gilkino couldn't use the teleportation scroll and he flew out, wouldn't that be a waste of effort? I won't be able to escape. Here's a report. Bring it back. Gilkino suddenly stuffed a letter into Gu Fei's hands. This plot doesn't seem real. You can't escape because the system limited your time. Otherwise, you might have a chance. If you were a mage, you might have been able to sneak out again. Gu Fei said. Gilkino didn't say anything again. It was clear that Gu Fei's thinking was once again jumpy. Then does this quest count as a failure? Gu Fei had no choice but to regulate his thinking. It doesn't count as a failure as long as you send this report back. Gilkino said. Send it where? Who told you to come? Where are you going to send it? Gu Fei was helpless. What was there to say to an NPC? He looked at the quest list again, and found that the contents had changed. The original rescue quest had turned into a follow-up quest. Gu Fei didn't know if this was the plot's design, or if it really was because he didn't have enough time, causing the quest to change. According to the original time, there was still a minute left. Gu Fei wasn't in a hurry to leave. He wanted to see if Gilkino would come up with anything else after this 1 minute. Who would have thought that at this moment, a shadow would flash and another person would enter the tent? Of course, Gu Fei couldn't let the people outside see him enter the tent, so he stood in the corner and didn't notice anyone approaching. But as soon as this person entered the tent, he noticed that someone was beside him and turned his head. How could Gu Fei give him the chance to call out? He flew over and killed the person with a dual flame flash. At this moment, he didn't dare wait another minute. If this person died, he would immediately notify the guild that someone had sneaked into the tent. If that happened, it would be very troublesome for him to escape. Gu Fei couldn't die this time. He had a quest on him, and it was a follow-up quest. If this person died, the quest would fail. Would he receive another one? It wasn't easy to sneak into Gilkino's tent once. It wasn't like he could casually enter and exit a free market. Gu Fei flashed to the entrance of the tent and used teleportation to fly back to that angle. At the same time, there was a commotion in the group of drinking and singing players. Countless people rushed towards the tent. Gu Fei saw that this was a great opportunity, so he acted sluggishly. Very soon he was overtaken by everyone, so he immediately turned around and ran. Success retreat. As Gu Fei ran, he sent a message to Sword Demon. The 3 little soldiers had long since been sent back. This time, the little soldiers had only cooperated with him to put on a show. They didn't have any real combat use. How is it? Sword Demon asked about the situation. I can't save him. He gave me a message and told me to bring it back. I don't know if this is the quest's content or if it was because I didn't have enough time. Gu Fei said. There's a follow-up quest? It can't be a chain quest, right? Sword Demon said. Have you gone crazy thinking about chain quests? Normally, quests have a follow-up quest. Gu Fei said. That's true. Sword Demon said. The two once again didn't know that drinking and singing was also having a huge breakdown. When the guild leader Countercurrent received the message, he cursed 18 times. Message report. The player who received the quest went to the tent to find the NPC to turn in the quest when there was a person hiding in the tent. He was ambushed and killed. With his death, the quest was declared a failure. Chapter 676. Who? Against the Current continued to roar in the guild channel. This was a rather rare scene. Going against the current was usually a person who could endure anything and rarely lost his composure. We didn't see anyone when we arrived at the tent. Someone said in the channel, then who's a ghost? Against the Current angrily charged towards the resurrection point. Previously, when he came here to welcome Sword of No Oath, he was still feeling a little happy. This time, however, he was filled with rage. Along the way, all the little flowers and grasses were trampled to death by Against the Current. Who? Against the Current encountered a player that had been killed. I don't know. The player that was caught was called Half Moon. He was originally a small character in singing and drinking. But this time, he received this quest and was highly valued by the guild. Even the guild leader personally came to ask about him and arranged for elite players to protect him. This treatment made him extremely excited, but who would have thought that something like this would happen at the last moment? Half Moon had already noticed someone in the corner of his vision when he entered the tent, but before he could even turn around, he was already at the resurrection point. He really didn't know who it was. You've already been killed and you still don't know who it is? Against the Current raged. Did he go into stealth? The person beside Upstream interrupted. Yes, stealth. His attack is also very high. He was instantly killed. Half Moon's move was called taking advantage of the situation. Although he didn't know who it was, he was certain that it wasn't stealth. However, seeing Against the Current's angry expression, Half Moon hurriedly pointed out that it was stealth. This way, his responsibility would be greatly reduced. It was normal for an assassin in stealth to not know who it was. No wonder he was able to sneak into the tent without anyone knowing. Against the Current commented, aren't there anti-stealth players around? What the hell are you guys doing? Against the Current complained in the guild channel. Some of them still didn't know that the quest had failed, and were still fighting with the players from Spear and Rose. Against the Current's criticism session had already begun. Anti-stealth also has a probability. Since someone has snuck in, It means that the probability wasn't triggered. Han family young master said fairly. Could it be the sword ghost? Upstream current suddenly thought. I can't get in touch with them now. I will ask them for you later. Han family young master said indifferently. Everyone in the guild knew about the relationship between the Han family young master and the sword demon Gu Fei's mercenary group. Moreover, they weren't familiar with the Han family young master. At this time, some people suspected that this guy had gone easy on them. Moreover, this guy's tone didn't seem to care at all. Therefore, following the indifferent tone of the Han family young master, someone followed up and said, "Could it be that you intentionally let them in?" Han family young master laughed coldly. "Even if I wanted to, what about these 100 people? Do they have no brains or eyes?" Over 100 people with brains and eyes, some of whom were still fighting bloody battles, couldn't take it anymore after hearing the suspicion. Fuck you, unknown. Who let them in on purpose? What nonsense are you spouting? Are you looking for a beating? Fuck you. The man with the ID unknown offended more than 100 people at once because of a thoughtless remark. Some of them cursed him out loud, some of them responded in an enigmatic manner, and some of them even posted pictures of their exquisite weapons to show that they were going to teach him a lesson with them. Unknown didn't dare to make a sound. He hugged a random tree and cried. We're all brothers. Unknown, don't spout nonsense. Even Against the Current stood up and scolded him. This matter could be big or small. If they really followed Unknown's train of thought, they would have to make a big deal out of it. It was just a game. If you really don't believe me, I can just leave. Who's going to stay and suffer like a grandson? There were over 1,000 people in the guild, but there weren't many who had deep feelings for the guild. Against the Current didn't suspect anything in this aspect. The reason was because of what Han family young master said. Even if he wanted to let them go, the 100 people under his command weren't brainless. He couldn't possibly let everyone go and let the others in, right? Against the Current dared to hand over the command to Han family young master, who wasn't really his trusted aide. He had already thought this through. Moreover, there were people he absolutely trusted among the 100 people. They could be considered as supervisors. If Han family young master really wanted to do something, these people would definitely inform him. But without exception, these people were full of praise for Han family young master's arrangements and command, especially when he knew that the enemy was spying on them from the bushes, but he didn't do anything. He had arranged for the enemy to walk into the trap. It could be said that he had considered every detail. If something went wrong at this time, it could only be said that they were unlucky. It was something that couldn't be avoided. Maybe the person who suddenly appeared wasn't a player, but a plot in this quest? Someone guessed. That's possible. Sigh, I was too careless. Against the Current was depressed. Others, try again. Can you accept this quest again? No, we tried. A player who was still stuck in the quest reported. How's the battle? We won easily. We escaped with a few points. Then come back. Remember, pretend that nothing happened. Don't go after Spear and Rose. We'll settle the score after the city war is over. Against the Current warned. He had clearly regained his composure. His initial impulse was understandable. After all, he had been busy waiting for more than 2 hours, but it was suddenly destroyed at the last minute. This kind of feeling was best understood by Bayern Munich in the 1999 Champions League final. If you wanted to know more, please go to Baidu. Gu Fei and Sword Demon returned to Cloud City and went their separate ways to turn in the quest. Sword Demon was closer, but he didn't see any rewards after turning in the quest. He was puzzled and asked Gu Fei. The quest hadn't been turned in yet. He then thought of the hotel owner, Little Ray. They had also added each other as friends. Sword Demon sent a message to ask, but there was no reward. Maybe it will be given after the city war is over. Little Ray guessed. Is there a follow-up to your quest? Sword Demon asked. Yes. Little Ray said. Sword Demon was depressed. Everyone had it, but he didn't. What is it? Sword Demon asked Little Ray. He said it wasn't enough and told me to send it again. Little Ray said. It's been hard on you. Sword Demon was silent. He He would rather not have a follow-up to this kind of quest. Thinking about it, he went to the secret base of the Assassin League to communicate with the NPCs to see if there were any more quests to accept. He was busy with his own things. Gu Fei soon arrived at the city hall. After returning the letter, he was praised by the guard captain. He was an NPC, so the players wouldn't care if they were angry or happy. Gu Fei patiently waited for him to finish the plot. He saw the captain's face was serious again as he began to assign the next quest. You go now and trace the clues provided by Master Gilkino. The captain said. What clues? Gu Fei asked. There seems to be a key to victory at Cloud Suburb Lake. I'll leave it to you. The captain also came over and patted Gu Fei's shoulder. Cloud Suburb Lake, that's very far. Is that still considered a city war? Gu Fei was puzzled. He knew of that place, and it was a bit far from the main city. So the captain said something quite imposing. The whole world is in a city war. Okay, I'll go. Gu Fei replied and looked at the group of soldiers. The three from before had mixed with this group of people after they came back. How many people would be sent this time? Okay, you go. The captain ordered him to leave. Unfortunately, there were no more soldiers to play with this time. Gu Fei was a bit addicted to playing. He didn't play much of a soldier's role in the battle just now, but the system didn't give him any more chances. Gu Fei resentfully left the guard room, but when he went downstairs, he unexpectedly bumped into Little Ray. Hey, you're here too. Gu Fei greeted. Yeah, I took another batch of orders and went to the warehouse to transport the goods. Little Ray sighed. Your faction's quests are very stylish. Gu Fei said. It's all right. After saying this, the two left the city hall. Little Ray swung his arms, pushed his flatbed cart, and waved at Gu Fei. Let's go, see you later. See you later. Gu Fei said goodbye to Little Ray and contacted Sword Demon. My new agent has come out. How are things on your side? Another assassination. Sword Demon said. Little Bottle Cap, I don't know which guild's leader this is. I've never heard of him. Well, no one is asking about it right now. What are you going to do? Gu Fei asked. Why not? I'll go to the guild building now and find out which guild it is. Sword Demon said. I'm going to Cloud Suburb Lake. Gu Fei said. Oh. What's the quest this time? Sword Demon asked. It wasn't clear. It said that there might be the key to victory or defeat there. I'll go take a look. Gu Fei said. Is that what the system said? Sword Demon asked. More or less. The word maybe is too subtle. Sword Demon was worthy of being an old player. He knew that all systems were shameless. Gu Fei saw that the sword ghost was actually so careful with his words. He carefully recalled and said, So you didn't actually say might? Oh. I said maybe. Gu Fei said. The two then went their separate ways. Sword Demon was active in the city after all, and once again arrived at the place first. As a result, the staff in the guild building condemned the guild with righteous indignation. Sword Demon wiped his sweat. This was too immersive, wasn't it? Now for the main city, the guilds had become rebels and were all out killing. Now they still came to apply to join the guild. Wasn't this the same as going to be a bandit in front of the officials? If they didn't kill him on the spot, he would be lucky to have escaped. When applying to join the guild, he could see the list of guilds in the entire city. Sword Demon saw that this didn't work and could only check the guild rankings. He didn't know if this function was turned off. But even if it wasn't, Sword Demon didn't have much hope for this side. This list only ranked 100. There were more than 1,000 guilds in the main city. Whether or not Little Bottle Cap's guild was in the top 100 was a mystery. In the end, Sword Demon was disappointed. The ranking function was still there, but the ID Little Bottle Cap wasn't in the list of 100 guild leaders. But just as Sword Demon was looking at the ranking, an NPC suddenly came to Sword Demon's side. I know where you came from. These evil people need to be punished. Sword Ghost was confused. He looked at the NPC and asked, How should I punish them? 100 evil leaders. Which one are you going to punish? The NPC asked. Sword Demon was stunned. His gaze turned back to the ranking list, and he immediately broke out in a sweat. He didn't notice before, but the top 100 guild rankings, which were originally seen as an honor, had now become the top 100 bandits rankings. Sword without oath, against the current Unchung Mutsu, these famous guild leaders were now judged by the system to be the leader of the evildoers. They were hanging here waiting for people to punish them. This NPC asked him which one he wanted to punish. This was also a mission. But this kind of mission made things difficult for Sword Demon. He was a person who valued his friends, and was always reluctant to show his face. This time the system didn't force him to assign it, but he took the initiative to choose. Some of the names on the list that he knew were automatically filtered out by him. At the same time, he didn't forget to send this news to Gu Fei. Big discovery. The guild rankings here in the guild building have become the wanted list. Wanted list? This is my strength. Gu Fei was about to leave the city gate when he heard the news and quickly ran back. Investigate? Investigate my ass. It's so cool to kill people. When Gu Fei rushed to the guild building, Sword Demon was still looking at the list of 100. This was really troublesome for him. These guild leaders who could develop the guild to the top 100 were all very ambitious people. How could they not be interested in recruiting talents? Who would ignore a famous and charismatic expert like Sword Demon when it came to recruiting talents? Sword Demon actually had dealings with these 100 people. A few of them had even argued with him 2 days ago. They wanted to make a last effort to pull him in before the city war. Gu Fei heard the Sword Spectre sigh as soon as he walked in. He asked, "Have you chosen?" Then he went off to look around. The NPC came over again, but the words he said to Gu Fei were different from what he said to Sword Demon. Arresting these vicious people is a very dangerous thing. Warrior, do your best. It seemed that it was based on the faction. Sword Demon thought about it, and sent a message to Little Ray. Little Ray, the guild has a big wanted list here. It seems that you can accept any mission. Are you interested? Oh. Wanted for what? It's the original top 100 guild leaders of our Cloud City. Boss Sword Demon, do you know what my profession is and what level I am? Little Ray asked. Huh. I'm only level 30. You want me to fight with the big guild leaders? Little Ray said. You're only level 30. That's not right. Don't you need to be over level 40 to enter the faction? Sword Demon didn't understand. Is there such a rule? I don't know. Little Ray said. Sword Demon was at a loss. He hadn't completely confirmed this rule. Then you go do your thing. Sword Demon replied to Little Ray. He turned around and found that Gu Fei was looking at him. Have you chosen? No, you've chosen. Of course. Gu Fei said. Who did you choose? Same old rule from top to bottom. Sword of no oath. Sword Demon collapsed. Among all the guild leaders, Sword of No Oath was the one who had the most friendship with their mercenary group. After the mission ended, they didn't return to Cloud City. Sword of No Oath often came to ask questions. This Qianli didn't care about their friendship at all. I don't know if 2 people can repeat it. You can try. Gu Fei said. Sword Demon was embarrassed. It's just a mission. What are you afraid of? Gu Fei said. Sword Demon was an experienced person. He knew that although this was the case, how many people could really see through it? Guild wars and the like, which one of them didn't cause the players to oppose each other under the rules of the system? But how many people had become enemies because of this? And at this time, these guild leaders would definitely attach great importance to this kind of opposing mission. Sword Demon guessed that if they completed this kind of opposing mission, the other guild would definitely have some punishment. Otherwise, if they just died and resurrected, what was the difference between this and being killed by NPC soldiers on the battlefield? The things that the guild sent out for the players to do had to be more valuable. Sword Demon could calmly accept the mission that the system forcefully sent out. Now that he had to pick a target to mess with, he immediately felt uncomfortable. I know them all. I'm really embarrassed to do it. Sword Demon said. You also know white and black. Didn't you also do it? Gu Fei said. That's not the same. Sword Demon didn't know how to describe this feeling. Gongzi, you know them better. I see that you're quite happy stabbing them. Gu Fei said. That's not the same. In fact, it's all the same. I'll just randomly accept one. When the time comes, I'll cover my face, stab them, and they'll resurrect. How much trouble can there be? If against the current white plus black, unsworn sword, and the others heard Gu Fei's words, they would definitely be angered to death. Gu Fei had just casually killed a few people and left, but they were all going crazy over it. Alright, that's it. I accept it. Sword Demon also felt that he was being too unmanly. I'll just go all out and kill them. Can two people take one? Won't it become kill-stealing? Sword Demon muttered and turned back to ask the NPC. The NPC's eyes seemed to flash with contempt and told Sword Demon, "You can form a team." The Sword Ghost was so ashamed that he could not show his face. New things always made people at a loss. The two of them formed a team. Sword Demon looked and saw that Gu Fei's Sword of No Oath quest was on his side. Looking at this familiar name, he couldn't help but feel apologetic. At this time, Gu Fei had already carried his sword out. I wonder if reflected years can appear again and take us to find the target. Ha ha ha. Gu Fei was still happy. The two of them talked as they walked out of the north gate. When they saw the scene in front of them, they were overjoyed. This is a heaven-sent opportunity. Gu Fei was excited. The north gate that had been silent for a long time was filled with smoke again. Without that key quest, Countercurrent could only continue to fight to the death. Sword of No Oath didn't know that his quest had been inadvertently destroyed. Seeing that Countercurrent was really going to organize all the guilds to fight to the death with the system, he was very confused. According to the intelligence, Singing for Wine must have made a big discovery in that pit. Could it be that this discovery was a weapon that could be used in a chaotic battle? Sword of No Oath was full of doubts. At this time, Black Index Finger's selection of members had also been carried out, and some of the weaker players were effectively eliminated. Of course, they couldn't say that they couldn't help and should just stay on the side. Instead, they organized this group of people and focused on harassing one area. What the guild leaders meant was that although this group of people was weak, they still had a lot of people. Even if they couldn't exhaust the system and died, they could more or less attract some of the system's forces. This way, the main force could face fewer enemies. Brothers, let's take down Cloud City in one go. Countercurrent shouted and shot a chain of fireballs into the sky. Everyone saw this signal, and bravely began a new round of attacks towards Cloud City. You're tuning in to the Lime's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.